because there's only three of us, everything we do tonight has to be passed by a 3-0 vote. So you'll find hopefully it will go smoothly.
We have translate. Oh, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead. Go
We
ahead.
have translation tonight. Vivian Rodriguez.
Muy buenas noches y bienvenidos de parte de la Junta Directiva del Distrito Escolar de Santa Bárbara. Si hay alguien que necesite la ayuda de un intérprete, por favor levante la mano para darle un audífono. Y si no, yo voy a estar en la parte de atrás cerca a los baños. Gracias. Thank you.
You have introductions and proclamations?
Yes, we do. We also have headsets for the hearing impaired. Tonight, I'm pleased to have with us just an outstanding teacher. Marilyn Garza is a junior high school teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High School. She's been recognized by the Milken Foundation. She's an award-winning science teacher. You're all going to love having your kids in her class. She's preparing for tomorrow's Family Ultimate Science Exploration, FUSE night, and I invited her to tell us what is happening.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. Good evening, board members. Thank you again for inviting me here. I'm very excited about this event. FUSE, it does stand for Family Ultimate Science Exploration Night, and so I'm actually very excited to see all these families here tonight. So the concept of fusion is a merging of two or blending of two or more things. So students, families, and here I'm going to include the university. So why use science as our common goal here? It's because science provides hands-on activities, and I love science, and it provides a means for me to break down stereotypes. We invited or recruited UCSB engineering science students to come help lead the events. And the goals here were to introduce scientists to the community, cultivate a relationship between the school district and the university, and provide outreach experience for the university students so that as they go along into their careers, they would think of school districts that they are around. This is a joint venture from our science department, from the support of our administration, and a LEAPS NSF grant, which stands for Let's Explore Applied Physical Science. You'll see some of the graduate students that were part of that. And since then, the LEAPS grant is now over, and we have the CNSI, which is the California Nanoscience Institute FOG grant, which is Faculty Outreach Grant, now provides this model to all 4 of the junior high sites. So what is our main format? Our format is that we have stations, 3 different science stations set up, 1 or 2 scientists at each station, and a maximum of 8 families. And I encourage the students to bring not only their moms and dads, but their grandparents and aunts, anybody who's around, to come join us. We have rotations of 25 minutes at each station with a 2-3 minute between each station. And I really fought hard to recruit Spanish-speaking scientists, students at the university, because we wanted to provide role models. And so we actually lead a whole set of stations in Spanish. So here's kind of a diagram of our logistics. We start, and I welcome them all, and then they are all given passports of different colors, and they go to the different stations. And the 3 routes keep the scientist-to-family ratio low. It provides multiple activities per night, and we can accommodate large numbers of families. So what are our stations? Tomorrow, I'm really excited to present electromagnetic motors, which they'll build. Elephant toothpaste, which is a cool exothermic chemical reaction. And they'll be learning a bit about marine sciences with kelp beads. We'll also lead a fuse in the spring, in which we'll look at non-Newtonian fluids, build speakers out of paper cups, wires, and such, and then smoke rings. So what's the big picture here? This is what I love to see, families working together. So in junior high, I know there's somewhat a disconnect between the students and the families. And here, this is what I love to see is them brought together and working on something that I love to see, which is science. Conversations about science started. I want science to be talked about at home. And this way we provide a platform or something in which they can start talking about science. And scientists working with, from UCSB, working with the general public, I think it's really valuable to them and for the public to see how science is done and role models in science. And basically, it's a whole lot of fun. So I thought I'd kind of show you or give you a glimpse of what one of our activities, and that's the smoke rings. So, excuse me.
So speaking of fun,
Yes.
what are smoke rings all about?
Smoke rings.
Take the mic with you.
Oh, I have to take, oh, actually, I need to hold this. So, you might have seen Airzukas. And Airzukas are just basically a way to blast, here, I'll blast them. I won't blast you. Blast a bit of air at an object. And I can kind of gently blast you guys. I don't know if you can feel it. Can I do the audience? Is that all right? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mess up your hair. Okay, you can't really see it. So I'm going to add some smoke to it to see, so you can see what's going on. Yeah, can you lift this up?
Good. So by hands-on, we're talking about both hands.
Can you turn this on? Thank you. I'm filling the trash can with smoke. Hey, turn it off.
And
With
this
a
is an
smoke alarm.
inert substance, right?
Yes. Let's check it out.
All right, excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garza. I have a feeling your students have a great time in science.
So that's Fuse tomorrow night. What time?
6:30 to 8.
6:38, Santa Barbara Junior High. Excellent. Thank you, Marilyn.
The superintendent's report?
Well, I have one other presentation.
okay.
Is Marlon Valencia, there she is, right here. Marlon, would you just come up here, please? Just stand right here and look embarrassed while I say good things about you. Oh, very good, very good. Jenny, why don't you stand there with her? Marlon Valencia, I want you to know that Marlon Valencia, child development school-age teacher for children in grades kindergarten through first grade at Adams Elementary School, received an award of excellence by the California School-Age Consortium. This award honors 2 teachers each year in California who work in after-school programs. Marlon has been a teacher in the district's child development school-age program for the past 25 years, starting to sound like a career, Marlon, and is deeply committed to providing a classroom environment where children receive continuous support in social skills, conflict management, and self-care. She has led the way in child development program by developing her outdoor classroom with garden areas planted and maintained by the students and her families. In the course of raising her stepson, John, Marlon says she realized that he was in fact teaching her how to be a compassionate mother and also a compassionate teacher. Her stepson is now grown, but that relationship helped her to see that her compassion was to commit herself to work with other people's children and to be there for them 100%. She said, "Teaching is a profession of giving, and I feel blessed that I am doing my love and my profession." Congratulations, Marlon. You need another copy of this? And we're all pleased to see it written up in another local paper. Maybe you need, oh, you haven't seen that yet? Excellent. Well, good. I do have other items to report. Well, it's been a quiet week in our town. No, not really. But we did ask Garrison to come down and say hi. He said something about having to find his red socks to put on his show, so he couldn't make it here tonight. Some of our schools are reporting increased cases of the flu. All of our schools are below the 10% plus absentee threshold that the Department of Public Health is closely monitoring, but we are in touch with them about what we are seeing. We don't know whether our students who have the flu have the H1N1 swine flu virus or have some other cold or some other flu. We're treating them all the same, and we're asking parents that if children are sick, please keep them home. Please continue to keep them home, especially if they have a fever, for a full day past the fever. We're asking the same thing of staff members. What we're committed to is stopping the spread of H1N1 and, of course, any other sniffles or flus as well. Last night, we sent out a district-wide teleparent message regarding the seasonal flu and the H1N1 swine flu. We posted the message in the flu section of the district's website. Imagine that, we have a flu section in our website. The flu was an agenda item at today's principals meeting, and head nurse Michelle Melendez was on hand to answer questions. So we're going about this aggressively, trying to keep kids at home and staff members at home who may have the flu. Board, we're still dealing with a growing problem of marijuana dispensaries. In addition to sending the board's letter and recommendations on marijuana dispensaries to the City Council, we have attended 4 ordinance committee meetings in the past month, and I've met with City Council members on the committee. Last Tuesday, the ordinance committee made changes to the ordinance. We'll be sending it to the Planning Commission. We believe we'll be sending it to the full City Council. The changes did not include any of the recommendations that the board presented to safeguard our students. For example, dispensaries would still be allowed within 500 feet of schools. We have schools that have dispensaries within 2 blocks, 1,000 feet. We have a number of schools like that. We have the Mission School, which is attended by some of our at-risk special education students, that has a dispensary within 500 feet. We're concerned. This has really spun out of control. There are a lot of dispensaries in the pipeline, and needless to say, I'm very disappointed in the ordinance committee's inaction and doing nothing to protect our kids, whether it's due to the location of the dispensaries or whether the dispensaries are in the paths of travel to and from school. Some are so close our students would be able to go over at lunchtime and get their stuff. I will be speaking further with them, and we will stay on this. We don't comment on changes in sports schedules very often, but last week, in an important move that becomes effective in 2010 will significantly affect the Channel League football, the CIF approved the move of St. Bonaventure, a school in Ventura, and moved the football program at St. Bonnie to a different league. Now, we've been working hard on this for a long time. The change levels the playing field. St. Bonnie was able to recruit from all over the state. They had kids who were bigger, faster. I'm pleased that the CIF reached the decision because the inequity that existed posed a threat to the safety of our students and regularly resulted in severely lopsided scores. I mean, 28-0 often. I'm thankful for the persistence of our athletic directors and our high school principals. In fact, at one point, I wrote a letter to CIF and said, we will not be in the same league with St. Bonnie in the future. So that has been accomplished, and this next year, we will not. The board brief. My office regularly issues a report to the board called the board brief. It's a collection of reports and news items on school and district matters. A copy is on display in the reception area in front. The October 16 board brief had a number of important reports. I will quickly highlight just 4 of them. First, for as little as $2,000 more, it may cost more, but at this point only $2,000, we can start broadcasting our meetings in Spanish. The downside is that airtime is not available until 11 p.m. and it may take recording for people who want to see it, or at very least we would have DVDs here available in Spanish. We will make arrangements to run this as a pilot for the next 6 months, and we'll advertise it, then assess it by surveying our Spanish-speaking parents to see how useful it has been. Second, the board also saw an update on the Cesar Chavez Charter School charter renewal, an item that will be scheduled for discussion at the November 10 board meeting. Third, on parcel tax measures H and I, you saw a report that was of great disappointment to us. We learned for the first time just 2 weeks ago that the $1 administrative fee that's applied to the county has been added to each tax despite our explicit instructions to include it in the parcel tax amounts. The county auditor controller has apologized for the mistake and has offered to respond to all complaints. We're, of course, not happy that it has happened, and we are meeting with the county to see if it can be rectified this next year. It cannot be rectified this year, I'm sorry to say. And they're sorry to say. And Eric Smith is sorry to say as well. Finally, there's an important article from School Services on supplanting. It was particularly important because this is a year where finances are different. In a year where funding does not grow or is reduced, there is a legitimate argument that can be made that funds from restricted sources can be used to backfill for unrestricted contributions, provided that a budget gap can be documented and that the use of the restricted resources in place of the unrestricted resources is allowable within the purposes of the grant. The article states that this is not just an opinion, but a documented fact based on the Office of Management and Budget Circular from March 2004. So this is one of those years when that does kick in. And board members, you have a list of upcoming events up here on the dais, and there's some additional copies of this over on the table. Santa Barbara Junior High School's Family Ultimate Science Exploration Fuse Science Night happens tomorrow. Goleta Valley Junior High School presents Boo, a series of 3 spooky plays on October 30. That's a good place to be on October 30. San Marcos High School's fall play Dracula begins November 13. Santa Barbara High School's production of Pinocchio also begins November 13. Dos Pueblos High School presents Kaufman and Hart's You Can't Take It With You beginning November 14. And Santa Barbara Junior High School's fall play Stephanie Hero begins November 19. You can check our website for more information. Dave, if you'd like to flash that on the screen again. And tonight, I believe we have a student report from Kevin Davis. Kevin is, no. Kevin, are you with us? Dos Pueblos student report tonight? Well, tonight we don't have a student report. We will have one at the next meeting, and thank you. There are community forums on special education, the work of our task force committee, and getting more information from the community. The first of which is Wednesday night, October 28, at La Cumbre Junior High. That's tomorrow night. The next will be Monday, November 2nd at Goleta Valley Junior High, and third, Wednesday, November 4th at Santa Barbara Junior High. So that's tomorrow at La Cumbre, Monday at Goleta Valley Junior High, Wednesday, next Wednesday at Santa Barbara Junior High School, and the time is 6:30. It will run from 6:30 until 8:30. And very good, thank you so much. And the one tomorrow night at Santa Barbara Junior High, oh no, excuse me, next Wednesday at Santa Barbara Junior High will be conducted primarily in Spanish. It will make it a lot easier then for our Spanish-speaking parents. Thank you.
One comment on the board brief item on the television. Have we given any thought, or can you give some thought? We have the DVDs. why don't we put a link on the website? We currently have the meeting date, the agenda, the attachments, the minutes. Why not a column for DVD in Spanish and DVD in English, and have the video right on our website? And they don't have to stay up to 11 o'clock.
To stream it off our website. We'll look into that.
Any other comments?
No, I just want to, I've been asking for some time to try and get the meetings televised in Spanish. I appreciate, even though it may require some recording at this point, at least we're getting our foot in the door, and hopefully we can then be in line to get a better time slot when they come up. So thank you for moving on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Under the announcement of closed session action, we did take action on item B1 by a motion by Cordero, seconded by Deacon. In closed session tonight, a decision by the district staff about a complaint against an employee was presented at the board, and the board, by a vote of 3-0, determined to uphold the findings of the staff without further hearing. And that was passed 3-0. Do we have public comment?
Yes, we have 5 speaker slips at this point. If there are any other people who want to speak during public comment, please submit your speaker forms at this point, and then we will close the speaker forms. Okay, then we will start with Joan Esposito, followed by Kate Smith, followed by Carolyn Renard. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will give you a 30-second warning.
Good evening, Joan Esposito from the Dyslexia Awareness and Resource Center. I'm part of the Special Ed Stakeholders Group on the FICMAT report, but there is an issue that is not being addressed, and Mr. Herron, you had brought up this issue several months ago, and that is the first report from FICMAT in April 2008, and I brought a copy of it for you, when they said a number of professional and parental sources informed the FICMAT team that the district site administrator and staff often meet with parents of students with disabilities who are being considered for expulsion, and they're being encouraged to seek voluntary enrollment in the community school operated by the County Office of Education, which is El Puente. And since the CELPA and the County Office of Ed have apparently agreed on a maximum number of students that can be enrolled in the El Puente school who have placement in a special day class in the Santa Barbara district, the parents are encouraged to bypass this hurdle and just put them into a resource, give them a resource teacher at El Puente. Then when the normal voluntary enrollment period expires, the site administrator, which from Santa Barbara, opposes the efforts to return the student to his or her school. This raises many compliance questions, and this is why I think the board needs to look at it. The questions appears to circumvent the requirement to determine whether or not an offending behavior is a manifestation of the student's disability. The district, CELPA, and the County Office of Ed should work together to discontinue this placement. And I also pointed out to you before, or maybe it was just after this report, and you may remember I spoke about the student who was not in this particular, not mentioned in this particular part of the FICMAT report. But this boy from the Santa Barbara Junior High was asked to go to the summer program at El Puente just to raise his grades, to get 10 more credits for him to go to high school. And if you remember, that student was assaulted at El Puente by a staff member. And, you know, I mean, I think you need to look into this part of the FICMAT report. That was not, it's not being looked at our stakeholders group. And I've given you copies of the last part, which talks about El Puente, and I think we need to look at it, and the front
30
cover.
seconds. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Esposito. And I do want to remind the subsequent speakers that special education is on our agenda. An update on the special education program is on our agenda for later in the evening. So the public comment is a time to comment on items that are not on our agenda. Ms. Smith, you'll have 3 minutes.
Grassroots uprising in Santa Barbara. The President of the United States and the Secretary of Education have tied the support of charter schools, which are child-centered, teacher-directed, and parent-involved schools. They're called schools of our dreams. They're called the schools our children need and deserve. The President and the Secretary of Education have tied the support of charter schools to the stimulus money. Simply put, no charter schools, no money. Why would a school board and district administration not want to support Cesar Chavez? Cesar Chavez is a dual language immersion charter school that is threatened with closure by you, the school board. Are you so ignorant about our society and about education that you know nothing about the need and the value of a bilingual population? You should consider Cesar Chavez a jewel in your crown. Rather than threatening to close Cesar Chavez, you should create more dual language charter schools. If you do close it, I promise I will lead a recall to remove you from your seat of power. Oddly enough, 45 years ago, the UCLA language department, led by Yvonne Leonard, did a pilot study of how to teach children a second language. From her work, the immersion methodology was established, and a textbook was written, Paroles et Pensées, and then translated into every other language taught in our nation's public schools. J'étais une étudiante de Madame Leonard, et ça c'est la raison que je parle français couramment. Même je suis professeur, mais je ne peux pas enseigner ici parce que la bataille, je t'emmerde.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Carolyn Renard, followed by Michael Masiosi, sorry. Ms. Renard, you have 3 minutes.
I'm asking the board to assist me in obtaining information about school policy regarding reporting kids to law enforcement that Mr. Sarvis is refusing to provide. On September 1st, on behalf of several low-income parents, I requested of Mr. Sarvis and Mr. Gonzalez information about how the decision is made regarding the criteria that school employees use regarding how the decision is made whether to report student behavior to law enforcement as criminal behavior when the student has either been previously identified as having disabilities or the school has evidence that the student has disabilities. I received a response, and as I stated, there have been numerous cases of students been inappropriately reported to law enforcement. I received a response that told me, that listed the entire letter except for several sentences had to do with mandatory reporting to law enforcement. And as I replied, obviously I'm not talking about those instances of mandatory reporting to law enforcement, such as when a student has a weapon. Obviously I'm not talking about that. So on September 16th, I responded and I said, of course I'm not talking about that. Also very concerned in your response, you stated that in response to my question, Mr. Gonzalez said that they leave it up to law enforcement to decide whether student behavior is a crime or not. And as I told as I responded in my letter on the 16th, This is a very disturbing statement. The police and sheriff's departments are not responsible for making determinations about student conduct under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. And when the school otherwise has knowledge that a child may have a disability, this is the schools and school district administration's responsibility. As you well know, law enforcement does not have the educational, psychological, medical, neurological, and other information that has been gathered under the school's responsibilities for assessment under the ADEA in Section 504. And they have not made the determinations as to what behavioral, social, communicative, and information processing
30
difficulties
seconds.
the child may have that must be considered in making such a determination. One case that I recently became aware of was involved an elementary school principal that called the police twice on a child who was crying and didn't want to go to the class. The police came and were quite intimidating and traumatizing to the child because of the direction that the school was taking it. This is a violation of the students' rights. This kind of behavior should have been thoroughly assessed, and actually it's mandated by law that this kind of behavior be assessed, not reported to law enforcement.
Thank you, Ms.
This is an
Bernard.
outrage.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard.
It's been close to 2
Michael?
months since I made
Mike-
my request. I'm asking the school board to help me get a response from Mr. Sarvis. What are the criteria used to report these students? And I'm giving you a
Michael
copy of my
Macione?
email right now.
Maciose, followed by Beth Ford.
Happy to know what you're talking about. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Maciose, followed by Beth Ford.
Hi, good evening. I'm Michael Maciossi, a second grade teacher at Cesar Chavez Charter School. This is my 8th year teaching and my 6th with Cesar Chavez. I hope that each of you has had time to read the teacher's letter that we sent. Thinking you may have considered that little matters as much as solid data when facing the decision you will soon make. I hope that you will carefully reflect upon the qualities of the relationships that pattern the heart of our school. In an open conversation with each of us, you could learn more in moments than from weeks spent studying figures. I am happy to hear that you're making time for these critically important dialogues. I have confidence in the data our leadership is presenting to the school board, which show our scores are solidly comparable to other schools and are staged to continue solidly improving. I salute those of you who helped to initiate our school and to give it its first chance to grow. We agree our school still has room to grow until it demonstrates academic excellence by means of the state test. There are no problems, only challenges that are being faced courageously. Still, no one can justify stating that CCCS is a low-performing school. This becomes thinkable only if you're not holding all the pieces of the puzzle. Our leadership and our teachers are steadfastly invested in continually improving student achievement. The evidence of this is abundant and includes our past growth as measured by an array of criteria, our current efficacy as experienced by each participant in our classrooms and community, and our future trajectory as calculated both analytically and subjectively. Stress has increased lately in our community, facing budget cuts and an unstable charter. I still frequently see staff working evenings and weekends on campus, continuing to exceed expectations to deliver the children the best possible service. If we are separated, we will each continue striving for the children's benefit. The unique advantages and high level of administrative and collaborative support that have taken great and careful effort to cultivate won't be transplanted, but will be lost. The consequences for the children are beyond measure. Please listen to that which may at first blush seem emotional. This is not my intent. It is the left with the right, the intuitive with the analytical, the artistic with the mathematical that makes CCCS a Renaissance school. To find the wisdom to make this decision equitably for all of the families and futures involved takes vast perspective and noble intent. May you act in accord with that wisdom. For the greatest benefit of the children, I thank each of you.
Thank you, Mr. Macione. Beth Ford.
Buenas noches. Hello, my name is Beth Ford. I'm a parent of 2 children at Cesar Chavez Charter School. We've been there for 4 years. I'm also the chair of the parent organization. I've lived on the east side for 9 years, 1 block from the school. I've seen a lot of good things, and I've also seen a lot of bad things, including several violent gang fights in front of my home. Cesar Chavez is definitely a bright light on the east side. It's a place where there is a sense of community, safety, and caring, a place where there is respect for Hispanic culture and language, a place of integration like no other in our community, where Spanish speakers and English speakers come together to help each other improve our school and help each other learn each other's language. It would be a tragedy to close this school, especially in a time of increasing youth violence in our community. But I'm sure you will hear this message over and over again in the next couple of weeks, and you've already received letters like these. So since I also have a legal background, I wanted to focus a little bit on the education code that I know that you will be following when renewing our charter. According to Section 47607, the board must renew our charter if it determines that the academic performance of the charter school is at least equal to the academic performance of the schools that the charter school pupils would otherwise have been required to attend. In this case, about 50% of Cesar Chavez students would attend Franklin or Cleveland. According to Dr. Sarvis's last two board briefs, it seems like we have been judged on one number alone, the API number. It is very difficult to see the whole picture when looking at one number. This number does not account for the dual language immersion model and the trajectory of increasing test scores from grades 2 to 6. This number does not account for the fact that our second grade English learners are taking a test in English when they have been focusing on reading and writing in their first language, Spanish. This number does not take into account that in a dual language immersion program, the lower grade scores will almost always bring the averages down. This number does not account for the other test scores, such as the CELT scores and the DRA scores. This number does not account for small sample sizes in our growing school. This number certainly does not measure academic achievement in Spanish language literacy. The Education Code explicitly requires you to look at data other than the API and STAR test results when comparing our academic performance to other schools. So, in the last few weeks at Cesar Chavez,
30 seconds.
we have been crunching some numbers. We have looked at our CELT test scores, our DRA test scores, our STAR test scores, and we've prepared graphs that show our students are achieving on par or better than comparable schools in the district. I look forward to sharing this data with each of you in the coming weeks and working together to look at the whole picture of our school's academic performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Thank you all very much for coming and showing your enthusiasm for the school. It's nice to see, and it's nice to see all the happy people. I mean, under the circumstances, I wouldn't expect to see so many smiles, but I do, and I appreciate that. We're going to go on with the agenda, and if you would like to...
A las familias latinas, gracias por venir.
If you would like to take the opportunity to stay until 11 o'clock and listen to us, or you can politely make an exit now if you'd like. Thank you. Item C4 is the acceptance of donations.
Move to accept with appreciation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
On the consent calendar, do I have any that would like to be held off? Ms.
I just have a
Cordero?
question about, because I was going to pull the minutes, but they've been replaced with other minutes.
Yes,
So-
there are 2 revisions.
Okay, so we're taking, so we'll be voting on the replacement ones.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
then I don't need to pull them.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to point out item D9. I'm not pulling it, but you'll notice a great number of removals relating to Just Communities. They were put on there by mistake, using a list of names that was not correct. So we're voting on, as far as D9, we're voting on the corrected edition. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, the consent agenda, the consent items? A motion to approve the consent items?
I move to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
I think this is a record that all were approved.
I would like to take the opportunity to thank the staff because they answered a lot of questions for me, and that makes it a lot easier. And I know that's a burden on them sometimes, but I appreciate it. Okay, D15. Okay, going on to the action agenda, item E1, approval of proposed truancy program.
Bud Andrews will be making this presentation. Michael Gonzalez is ill tonight. I'm afraid we're going to get into this season. And
Does this belong to somebody?
I think that's Ms. Renard's.
Oh, okay.
we'll hang on to it and
Okay.
we'll keep it in the office. Thank you. Oh, is she? Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
About a month ago, I came to you to discuss our truancy issues. Quite frankly, I think we only scratched the surface of the really serious one, stopping the truancy. A large part of what I'm attempting to do is address the liability issue with regards to making sure that our school sites continue to advise parents of when their students are absent. Following that meeting, I updated a few of the letters that Ms. Deacon had graciously offered to edit. In fact, I got a few more from her today, but those are relatively minor considerations. In fact, even just recently, I downloaded the brand new Attendance Review Board Handbook, 2009, and there are a few more changes based on this that I will incorporate into that proposal. But those letters are still very much in a draft form, and they'll be modified as they need to be. More importantly is what I'm hoping that the board will do is approve the stipend so that I can get a certificated staff member actively engaged in pursuing this and helping the schools get after-school programs, after-school and administrator meetings going so that we can really address the prevention element as opposed to the intervention. We can address a lot more kids with prevention at a fewer number of dollars than we can with the intervention that is significantly more expensive and only addresses a few number of kids. So if you have any questions, please.
Ms. Deacon?
I'm actually surprised that $5,000 is enough to do this task. I mean, I know that it's very important for us to get the word out to parents, and I'm assuming that you think this is sufficient.
There's my best guess at the $5,000 would more than cover at least 5 hours a week for this person through the rest of the school year. Most of that, or certainly a larger percentage of those numbers, will be spent now getting the schools on board. And towards the end of the year, it's really more follow-up and intervention at the school site to help them keep it going as opposed to get it started. So.
Well, I had a few comments on, primarily on the language of the letters. And one of the things that I wanted to look at, well, I'll start with the statement of the program. So it's on the page that follows the cover letter. And it lists the truancy program goals. And they are to improve school attendance, to monitor attendance. And we have two, it says to provide support for the attendance review board and to create and improve standardized reporting mechanism, et cetera. I was hoping that we could maybe add to our goals, providing support for the parents and the students in
Absolutely.
terms of attending, improving their attendance.
These goals are certainly not written in stone. I can add or modify as you choose.
So if we could provide support for students and parents in achieving regular attendance. Because I think if we did that, then it would help us address some of the other concerns that I had in terms of, for example, in number 4 and number 5, where we identify the objective. In number 4, we say the objective is intended to review policies and consequences for truancy, for continued truancy. Is there, one of the things I had raised at our last meeting when we discussed this was that we don't have any language that suggests that we are going to provide the parents with support for helping get their children to school and attend regularly. And so it seemed like, at least in some of these areas, that might be included as part of our objective.
Okay.
Is providing parents with suggestions. There might be a list of, suggested behaviors that the parents could participate in. Maybe setting a solid bedtime,
Alarm clocks,
getting
bus
up time,
schedules.
bus schedules, things, monitoring whether the student is, leaving the house on time, checking periodically with the teachers to see if the student is attending, or even giving them information about how to, check online for students' attendance. Because it talked about reviewing the policies and the consequences, but that seemed more on the punitive side.
Right.
So I'd like to give them the helpful side.
You're right.
And so I would see that in 4, somewhere in 4 and 5, probably.
Okay.
And that was on that first sheet. Then in the letters that go out, the truancy letter 1 and 2, and also letter 3, in truancy letter number 1, I was just a little bit concerned. I know we had talked about trying to make sure that the language was easily understood by the average parent. And so I just have a little bit of that in the second paragraph, which is all children in the state of California between the ages of 6 and 18 are subject to compulsory full-time education. That phrase, I was worried, might not be clear to all parents, what subject to compulsory education
All
means.
kids ages 6 to 18 need to go to school.
Yeah,
Right?
I thought, are required to attend school every day.
Must attend school
You know,
full-time.
Yeah, so say it, very plainly.
Here's-
In the list of A through H, again, I was hoping that maybe we could pull out C and F and state them in in a separate paragraph or something, because those are the items, that's the kind of information that in the past has generated the greatest number of complaints from parents about the letters. That they felt that the letters, when they mentioned prosecution, frightened the parents, and, really cause a lot of,
I can make that
you know,
change.
so I thought maybe we could pull them out and say, although this rarely happens, you should be aware that this, I think it's important to give them the information because it is
Right.
part of the law. But if we can, give it to them a little bit more
Okay.
clearly or gently, or I don't know what we want to say.
In fact, these letters were originally pulled from the first or the previous SARB handbook, and they have since been modified in a big way too, so I'll incorporate those changes along with what you're saying now.
Great, thank you. And then I thought this would also be a place, in the first letter, I think it's especially appropriate to give maybe a list of some suggested
Support
support for the
mechanisms? Okay.
parents. Okay, your child is starting to be truant. Here are some things you can do to help them get to school every day. Because at this point, it could be just a relatively minor, sort of correctable
Right.
problem. Then in truancy letter number 2, some of the similar things. I thought it might be helpful when it says you previously received notification, if we could give them the date that they got the letter, because parents get so much information from schools. that it, if
Basic.
parents are really well organized, they'll remember all of this. But if they're like most of us who are, have a million balls that they're trying to keep in the air at the same time, it would be probably helpful to have a date.
Right.
And again, that sentence that says, in order to prevent possible court action, if we could somehow
Soften it.
soften that a little, I think that would be great. Then I just had a question that seemed to be a little bit inconsistent in that it says the English meeting begins at, and there'll be a filled-in time, the Spanish meeting begins at, so it suggests that there are different meetings at different times. But then it says, the meeting will last 1 hour and will be conducted in English and Spanish.
I can fix that.
So-
There are two separate meetings, so as to concentrate on one language at a time and not trying to do this. There's a interpretation or translation back and forth, but I'll make that more clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, the last sentence of the second paragraph on the back page of this, where it says, over the previous several years, our school, it kind of delineates that we've worked with the probation department, the law enforcement, et cetera. And I was wondering what the purpose of having that information in the letter was.
That's a good point. There's other than providing historical context that might not terribly be useful to a parent, that can be taken out.
Yeah, I just thought, again, that kind of brings it into the law enforcement realm when we're still trying to get the student just to come back to school. And then in letter 3, I wondered if we would be able, before sending out letter 3, to determine whether or not the parents had attended the after-school meeting. Because if they have, we could reference that in the letter. You attended this meeting, it's, et cetera, it's important for you to follow up on it. Or if they haven't, that would be also important.
Actually, it's a good point. As I look through this new SARB handbook, there are 162 pages in this new handbook. 55 pages explain the system, and 107 are forms to use. And one of those forms is exactly that, just something that says you did participate in this or you did not show or whatever the case might be. And that's something that I was thinking of as I read it earlier today. That would be useful. So that's already been considered and done.
Great, thank you. And then the second paragraph, that first and second sentence, where it says, after repeated discussions concerning your child's attendance. First of all, I wondered will there ever be cases where the parent hasn't engaged in the discussions? For example, if the parent doesn't come to the school, if the parent doesn't come to the meeting.
Theoretically, the answer is no, but practically speaking, yes, there will be some parents who this might be the first time they actually get engaged.
Right, so I thought we maybe want to reword that so that it's
Okay.
applicable to all the parents. And then also, this poor attendance is seriously affecting your child's education. I could theoretically conceive of situations where the students maintaining at least a passing GPA, even though they're missing a lot of class. And so I wondered if, in order to be completely accurate, if we might want to reword that.
Yeah,
Because my concern is if the parent gets the letter and it doesn't seem to apply to their student, they'll disregard the importance of it.
I've made a note to reword that entire paragraph.
good.
But the impact of truancy goes beyond the academic goals of the student. We know that a truant student is more likely to get into trouble when he's not there or she's not there. As I went to one meeting not too long ago where an assistant DA in LA said, I've never met a gang member who wasn't a truant student first. And so there are a lot of implications.
But you have
making
met
that
truant
happen.
students who weren't gang members.
Absolutely. In
So-
fact, most of them are not.
Yeah, so the concern that I have is we don't want to profile the students
Correct.
by assuming that all of them are having difficulty simply because they're not coming to class.
It'll be reworded.
Thank you. Okay, and I think If, that would probably be it. Thank you.
Mrs. Deacon, anything further?
No, I'd just like to thank Mr. Andrews for putting effort into this, because I think we all believe truancy is a big problem. And as we know, it doesn't affect just your GPA, it affects all kinds of things. It's social development, and kids should be in school, and it's important for us to do our job and try to help get them there.
In fact, prior to this meeting, I called Anna Carpinteria to see if they've made any progress in their, I think we're actually 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of where they are. We're all still struggling as to what to do, since the DA's probation and county office have necessarily, I guess, from a result of funding, abandoned the project. So.
I'd just comment that, I think it's a huge process you're undertaking. And I questioned you quite a bit earlier on the SARB portion, and that'll take care of itself as you go forward. That's not the issue today. And there's just a lot of schools that one staff person for 1 hour a day coordinating events at every school, depending upon what letter it is, and getting the letters out and holding meetings in time before the next letter's due. It's just monumental. So I wish you awful good luck on this.
I think it's actually a training process, as opposed to this person making sure that it happens every single time, is to make sure those sites are taking care of it.
And
then
coordinating with every site is
reporting
monumental.
duly that it's been done.
Yeah. Any support that we can give to make sure the sites cooperate with this endeavor, follow the policies and practices. If you hear anything that is not going correctly by a site, please let Dr. Sarvis know.
Certainly from a secondary perspective, all the administrators have, for lack of a better term, been begging for something to happen. So I strongly suspect there won't be any resistance on making this happen. So.
Okay, do I have a motion to follow the
Thank you.
recommendation?
We have public comment
Oh,
on
public
this item.
comment, okay. Public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
Yes, ma'am.
Joan Esposito, followed by Carolyn Renard, followed by Kate Smith, followed by Wheeler. Okay. So you will have 3 minutes to speak on this item. Actually, yes, Ms. Esposito, you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. The Truancy Intervention and Parent Accountability Program started in 1996. I don't know how many of the board members are here at that time. It was a total failure and disaster to children's lives. I'm asking this board to please conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed truancy program before you approve it. The majority of the students in the truancy program have learning disabilities. And as you know, the FCMAT report mentioned that our students with learning disabilities are coming into this district with a learning disability, not being taught how to read and write, and coming out with personality disorders. Several years ago, I wrote a 32-page report. It took me 2 years to write it, and it was a 5-year study on the truancy program when it first started. And I wrote it for the Santa Barbara City Council. And I wrote about its failures, its violations of federal and special education laws, and I'm willing to give you a copy of that report. This program will continue as the first program to criminalize the child with learning disabilities. This will not resolve any of your problems. The estimated cost of $5,000 is nothing compared to the cost of the lives of these children. It will be insurmountable to these children if you approve this. You're talking about, you're talking about subpoenas, you're talking about probation. We had letters from the ACLU, which are attached to my report, which I will give to you, talking about the violations and the criminalization of these children. And the reason why the principals want this is because it's an easy way to dump the children onto the probation department. I have a case I came to Dr. Sarvis with the other day, but he hasn't met with me on it yet, of a young boy who was in the truancy program. I had asked this district in 2006 to help this young man. I believe I had 4 letters of documentation asking for help. He finished up in the truancy program. From there, He stole a skateboard a few weeks ago, and I guess it was also gang involved. It was a little bit more complicated. But last week, 2 weeks ago, he was in the Superior Court, and he's probably going to jail for a year. By the way, I've asked your district, I've asked your new director of special ed for help, but he has been of no help to me.
30 seconds.
These are the kinds of cases that I have, and I've listed 6 or 7 cases in this 32-page report. I am begging you, please do not approve this. $5,000 is not a lot of money. It's not the money, it's what it's going to do to these children that's going to count. Please do not approve this until we can get together, we can have a meeting, we can have a committee. I didn't even know these meetings were going on. Apparently they've been going on for a year. I'd like to have a clear review of this, of what Mr. Andrews is suggesting to the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. Ms. Renard? Ms. Renard, you have submitted a form to speak on 8 items. We have a limit of 10 minutes per speaker. You have used 3 of those for the public comment. That would leave you about a minute and a half on each of the remaining items.
That's ridiculous. Okay, first of all,
Would you like to split your time up evenly among them for a minute and a half?
have you started my time yet?
No.
Okay,
I'm
you
giving
know,
you, I'm giving you.
going to just speak, and then you can do what you want.
What?
All right, I'm going to
Okay.
start speaking. You can start my time.
I'll
First
give
of
you 3
all,
minutes on this
tru-
item and we'll subtract it
This
from the
states
others.
that truancy is the single greatest contributor for students performing poorly in their classes. This is simply not true. Truancy is a symptom of a larger underlying problem, often a learning disability, ADHD, or mental health problems. So this is just propaganda, and it's false. Speaking of court action, truancy, repeated truancies are a sign of distress that requires this district to assess a student under Section 504. This requires a full special education assessment. This is not part of your truancy program. Your truancy program's listed out here. There's nothing about that. That should be one of the first steps. This is a legally recognized sign of student distress that should evolve an evaluation. Also, it should trigger, if nothing else, an SST. What triggers an SST? Something like this. There's no mention of an SST in this truancy program. That's an outrage. The district can apparently violate their legal responsibilities with impunity, but if a student does, the student's held strictly accountable. This is a classic example. So, you know, the children are watching you, and the condition of the community's youth are a direct result of the examples you're setting. When you violate the laws with impunity, but it's expected them to follow the laws strictly, they see what's going on, they know what's going on, and you see it in our newspapers. Also, Mr. Andrews, who is supposed to be a specialist on this, has stated a falsehood on the truancy letter number 3. It says, your son or daughter has missed more than 6 days or the equivalent of school without a valid excuse, or has received more than 6 tardies of 30 minutes or more without a valid excuse. A tardy of 30 minutes or more is not a tardy. This makes parents think that if their student is tardy, that they are truant. This is supposed to be 6 unexcused absences. You know, Mr. Andrews knows better than this. I think this is purposeful to mislead parents into thinking that 6 tardies of 30 minutes or more, just tardies, are going to get them into the truancy program, and that's not true under the law. You know, I would request that this board have Mr. Andrews put the right information
30
on here.
seconds.
He knows better than this.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard. Kate Smith, followed by Lane Wheeler.
Bud Andrews said that his priority was to inform the parents of their child's truancy. This is sick. This is incompetence. Your responsibility to our children and their parents is that and through state and federal mandates, is to seek, test, diagnose and treat our children for learning disabilities, emotional problems, and mental disorders according to IDEA and ADA, Section 504. Bud Andrews then went straight to the issue of money. This is a misappropriation of funds and another example of self-aggrandizement. You do the work. That's what you're paid for. If this is your job, you do it. The last time Bud Andrews spoke about the truancy program, last board meeting, he admitted that last year there was no truancy program, no SARD, no nothing, and that the truancy went down by 50%. Do you remember that? Yes, thank you, Ed Herron. You do remember that. And he looked and said, well, we don't know why. I demand that you cease and desist your participation in the school to prison pipeline. Please visit SB School Talk. ACLU, NAACP, and Marion Wright Edelman's Children's Defense Fund have issued a call to action regarding the school to prison pipeline, which is the truancy program that started here in Santa Barbara. Please stop your illegal, unethical, and uncivil programs, policies, and practices that incarcerate instead of educate our low socioeconomic sector of our community. The Truancy and Parent Accountability Program is insidious racism, and our community is rising once and for all to hold you accountable. How about that instead of parent accountability? If you spent 1 iota of the time, money, and energy on inventing better schools and on educational reform, our community would be better served. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Lane Wheeler?
Thank you, Lane Wheeler, Santa Barbara Teachers Association. The suggestion that a certificated unit member be hired to fill in as the SARB secretary is an item I believe we would need to meet and confer on, and we have, as of this date, have not yet been appraised of that. So I would just ask the board before you take final action that we have a chance to meet with the Santa Barbara negotiating team to determine if that's the correct amount and how that would be charged out. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. That concludes public comment.
Any comments?
Dr. Sarvis, could you address Mr. Mr. Wheeler's comment about the certificated staff? Has that been discussed? Do you know?
I haven't had a discussion. I believe that Bud Andrews and Michael have had a discussion with personnel about it. Let's see, fiscal impact. Bud, talk to me about this.
I haven't had that discussion, sir, so I don't know if Michael has. I'm assuming that he has, but that might get me in trouble by making that statement. Yeah. This is a stipend to a teacher who has an administrative credential, who is hoping to get into an administrative position. Hopefully, if I have one of those candidates for this job, I just thought it would be a great professional learning opportunity to get involved. If it needs to go through the negotiation team, then I can talk with Dr. Robertson and Lane Wheeler. I would just ask that you approve it, and then
yeah, let me just say, if this needs to be negotiated, we will of course do that. We would ask that you approve up to $5,000, and if it cannot be negotiated at that level, then we would bring it back to you. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sarvis, could you also just address this notion of assessment of students for 504 and things like that? I think there's two tracks moving here. There's the truancy piece, but all these students are being assessed at the classroom level.
Yeah, we have an ongoing obligation to assess students. It starts as soon as they show up in school. In fact, it even starts before they attend school. It's an obligation that we take seriously. it's something that we are always on the lookout for. Every school has SSTs where they look for students who may have learning difficulties that may not be a function of a curriculum, that may in fact have some other underlying basis. And students are recommended by staff frequently for assessment. In some cases, parents are asking to have their child assessed, and they certainly have that right, and we have an obligation to assess the students. So when we have indications that there is something else going on here, that there's a learning difficulty, it really doesn't matter whether it's entering into a truancy program or for some other reason. If there are indications about learning problems, we are constantly on the lookout for that.
And chronic absenteeism quite often is a marker for difficulty in learning.
Yes.
I'm making the assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this entire process is to be helpful to students, to keep them in school, get them educated, meet with parents, discuss with parents matters that might be affecting school attendance. I mean, it's throughout this document. Is special ed department made aware of these letters affecting their students that are in the special ed?
Yes, sir.
Is there communication between your department and?
Two issues that you brought up, yes, sir. There's one is the entire truancy program is intended to be an intervention, not a consequence. There's right now we're still, as you are well aware, working on putting together that SARB as the ultimate consequence or intervention prior to the consequence of turning over to probation. With regards to special ed and 504, at the last meeting, if you recall, that's something that this person I hope to hire or to offer the stipend to will be ensuring that any student who is identified as 504 or special ed has an MD-IEP prior to any of these procedures going forward.
I asked Mr. Andrews about the SARB. Who is it? I mean, who is this magic group of people? And it's a parent rep, a school rep, law enforcement, county rep, family services rep, county social services, community-based youth service center, school guidance personnel, school or county healthcare personnel, and others. It's a big group of people that will be at that stage trying to help that child. I don't see any punitive intent here. If in fact parents think there's punitive things going on, we need to know about it, but I don't get the feeling that this is punitive. This is trying to be as helpful as we can be, and if the special ed department is in it also, monitoring the students in need, you know, it's keeping kids in school, getting them educated, keeping the parents involved. I see positives in it. Ms. Cordero?
I just wondered, because I agree with you, the principals are kind of waiting for this, I think. What is happening now?
Letters are going out, but sporadically and not on a regular, consistent basis. A student might be getting letter 1 when they're indeed entitled, to use that word, to get letter 2 or 3. And I just need somebody to make sure that this is a consistent and ongoing effort on a regular basis, reporting back to me so that I can report back certainly to Dr. Sarvis and the board if necessary.
Well,
Do I have a motion?
not yet.
Okay.
I just want to say, I think that it's important that parents are notified
Absolutely.
when their students are being truant.
Important and a legal obligation.
And that they be notified early in that process so that they're not waiting until the student has 25 truancies before they find out that they're truant. I also do want to point out that it very clearly states in the description of the program that students tardy to a class by more than 30 minutes are considered truant to that class for reporting purposes.
That's by education code.
That's by ed code, yes.
I believe it's 48-219, but it's certainly in that section if it's not 219 specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I just wanted to add that although I think our ultimate motivation is getting kids in school to learn, I mean, there are California education codes governing this, and in fact, people legally have to go to school. And so we're just complying with that, but ultimately our goal is to educate our students. And to do that, they need to be in
Oh,
class.
I wish to avoid consequence at all cost.
Right, right.
that?
And so we're going to make it as user-friendly as we can, this
Yes, ma'am.
system. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just had one more question.
Sure.
If, for whatever reason, you were unable to reach some sort of agreement with SBTA about this position, what would happen to the program? Let me
It's-
clarify the
okay.
question. If we were to vote to approve it tonight and you were unable to reach agreement, where would we be?
I would go back to the drawing board with SBTA to figure out what it is that would meet their expectations of this stipend. 'Cause, I think we can work that out, but at this point, I wouldn't have an answer for you. It would back to ground zero and hoping that the sites are sending out letters.
Then do you think we could wait until you have that agreement before we were to vote on this? Or do you think this needs to be in place sooner than that?
I think it's important that we get started right away. This won't happen until November at the very earliest. And I think we're well into the school year by then. And with the absence of the program all of last year, we can only make things worse by waiting.
All right, then I'm going to attempt a motion.
Well, you may want to ask the association president that question.
Mr. Wheeler, could we ask you a question?
Maybe I can provide an answer. There is no intention for us to delay this process, to move quickly on it. The 5,000, I have no idea where that number originated or how it was generated. It may be ample. Typically, we look at the hourly rates, but in comparing to other stipends, I certainly believe that there would be every effort made on SBTA's part to find an agreement on how this is structured. It may need a job description generation. I'm not quite sure. Dr. Robertson might be able to add something to that, but once again, I believe our intention is to support district in this effort, just to make sure that we've covered our bases in terms of the legal nature of the job description and what's entailed in the position. So I'm sorry I should have probably included that sooner.
Thank you. Okay, then I will move that the board approve the proposed truancy program steps, and that we request that the letters as revised come back before the board so we can see the revised version. And I'm going to add that we also approve it sort of with the assumption or contingent on reaching agreement with SBTA on the position, and that it come back to us for evaluation in, let's say, May. So at the end of the school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item E2, approval of representatives to the Special Education Local Plan Area, SELPA Community Advisory Committee.
I'm going to ask our Executive Director of Special Education, Tom Guajardo, to come to the podium. This is for the purpose of appointing representatives to the SELPA for their Special Education Community Advisory Committee, which is part of our SELPA process.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Sarvis, Deputy Superintendent Smith. We are asked by the SELPA to appoint one parent for each of our districts to represent us and attend regular meetings. This evening, we are fortunate to have two people who have been very involved in the community and who are also members of our FCMAT stakeholder group and came highly recommended by some of our special education staff. And we are asking for your approval this evening.
I have a question for you. Who would be the other parents on the board, on the committee?
Each of the districts in the SELPA is required to have a representative. We get two because of the two school districts.
Uh-huh.
So other districts in the county send a representative as well.
Do we have any Latino or Spanish-speaking parents on that committee from our district?
The two people being presented tonight are not Latino to my understanding.
Do you know if they're Spanish-speaking?
I believe they are not.
That's a concern for me, given that I don't think we have done a very good job of outreach in special ed to our Spanish-speaking community yet. So I think both of these people sound wonderful and wonderfully qualified to do it, but I'm concerned about who's representing the other portion of our community that tends to not be represented. So can you comment on whether that's a valid concern in terms of the makeup of the committee? Or am I putting you too much on the spot?
No, not at all. It would have been good to have a more diverse group of representation, perhaps. But I think the two people that are before you tonight go above and beyond ethnicity, and I've worked with them very closely since I got here and have the highest regard for the two of them. And when they go into meetings, whether it's a group of students or the FCMAT stakeholder group, they really are thinking of the best interests of all students. And I've seen these folks in various meetings, not just district-related, and I believe that they would do an outstanding job of representing our district.
Ms. Deacon?
I just wanted to comment that I've worked with both of these individuals, and I agree with you that I think they bring a lot to the table. They represent diverse special needs groups, which is really important. They've been very active in the stakeholder group, but far beyond that, we know that Kathy was actually an aide at Goleta Valley Junior High, and we know Mrs. Eichelberger has been very involved in our schools for a long time. So I support them. I think that they would do a very good job, a strong job.
Thank you.
Is it my understanding that these are two-year terms?
They are actually staggered because they don't want a complete turnover every 2 years. So one would start on a one-year term and one on a two-year term.
And which is which?
You know, I am not sure at this point, and I hate to put anybody on the spot.
Is there just like a,
Yeah. I can get that information to you because Claudia Echeverria is the one that runs the CAC.
We're the ones that appoint these people.
Correct.
Yeah.
One will come in as a one-year term, one is a two-year term. Because
What
they're
is your
both-
recommendation?
I'd like to have them both come in 2-year terms. And what I can do is follow up with the SELPA coordinator, Claudia Echeverria, regarding, because we don't want the entire SELPA turning over, but rather have staggered terms. But I would like to take a look at the total representation in the SELPA and recommend to the coordinator of the SELPA that perhaps we have them come in 2-year terms.
can I just comment on that? I would have a concern about our representation turning over all at once. So I think it would be better to have staggered terms for our representatives so that we always have continuity in terms of how we're represented there. And whether that means one person serves for 1 year, or maybe it means one person serves for 3 years. But however that happens, I would prefer to see it be staggered.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It might just come down to a coin flip or a lottery, but
Well, we can ask the individuals involved as well.
yeah, sure.
I'll make a motion that, I'd like to make a motion that Marcia be the 1-year term and Kathy be the 2-year term.
Can we ask for an explanation of why?
I just pulled it out of the hat.
Well, I would prefer not to
Okay.
determine their terms, and maybe I think it would be possible that they might determine them. And if If they can't, then we come to just flipping a coin, I would say.
Let me go ahead and follow up with the SELPA as far as guidelines on this, and I can also follow up with the two names before you, and I'm sure we can resolve it.
I don't want to belabor this point, but I do want to make sure that it's taken quite seriously. I also think both of these people are extremely well qualified. And I have no qualms whatsoever about their serving on this committee. I do, however, have serious qualms that certain groups in our population consistently lack representation on some of our most important committees and task forces. And if this were the only case and where that's happening, I would be willing to put it aside and not think about it. But given that it's pervasive in our committees and our task forces and our advisories, I think it's really not enough to just say that people, have good intentions or even that they have all the right information. People do need to have representation. And so I am willing to support these two people in this case because it takes a 3-0 vote to act tonight since we only have 3 people. But I really want to emphasize that I think this is important. I feel like we cannot continue to say it doesn't matter because that's how we have gotten to where we are, of years of saying, well, these people are wonderfully qualified, so we don't have to worry about it. And as a result, we end up with 20, 30 years of people not getting represented. So I feel really strongly about that.
Can I just make a suggestion? The group just met 7 days ago. They don't meet for another, I think, 3 months. We have plenty of time, I think. Maybe you should come back, look into it, and bring us back a recommendation at some time in the future.
Actually, we're behind the 8 ball. We've already missed one meeting, and we're losing out on representation.
But the next meeting isn't for 3 months, I don't think. So we got 3 month window before the next meeting. 2 months, 3.
Except for the fact that I'm being asked regularly, when are you sending the representatives?
But I'm one of the people who asked, I know.
We are
Yes.
the only district that does not have parent representatives on the CAC right now in the county.
Ms. Deacon?
Well, I would just like to say that I think you hear our concerns and
Exactly.
that our charge would be that you start now identifying someone if it means when this 1-year term expires, that we have people in the wings that we know are qualified and would be interested in serving, and we should start doing that now.
That is duly noted. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, sorry, I can't talk to it tonight, sorry, that we approve the,
I'm sorry. We have
oh, public comment.
I apologize. We have public comment. Ms. Smith, you have used 9 minutes so far this meeting, so you have 1 minute to speak on this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I told you before. I'm sorry. I'm claiming my accommodation under ADA. I have post-traumatic stress disorder,
Ms.
which
Smith,
was,
we'll give you 2 minutes. Can you start on your presentation?
well, actually, no. I am demanding that I have the full 3 minutes according to ADA. I explained this to you. You will.
Would you just start talking?
Okay. Thank you, Annette Cordero, for your concerns about Latino representation. My congratulations to Marcia Eichelberger and Kathy Kutzinger. Unfortunately, the first meeting was last week, and nobody went. I was the Santa Barbara parent representative to the Santa Barbara County SELPA, but when I brought the grand jury to a meeting, I was thrown off the CAC by Marcia McClish, even though I had another year in my term. I got back on when Marcia McClish left. Last year, the first 3 meetings did not have a quorum. When Joan and Les Esposito came to the CAC to speak on learning disabilities, they came with 1 guest, and they outnumbered the CAC members present at that particular meeting.
Smith, are you speaking on the representatives to the committee?
Yes. Are you not listening?
Continue, please.
This item shows a disturbing lack of understanding and knowledge about the SELPA CAC. You are approving a Santa Barbara School District's Community Advisory Committee when what you want to say is the Santa Barbara parent representative to the Santa Barbara County SELPA CAC. Also, you are supposed to have one parent representative and one professional representative. That's an important thing.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve the Marcia Eichelberger and Kathy Kutzinger to be our school district representatives to the Special Education Local Plan Area, the SELPA.
I'll second.
And Kathy is a parent, right? Yes. So that satisfies that last comment I heard.
No, a parent and a professional like
Okay,
They're both parents.
both parents, okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried unanimously. Is Tina Fanucci here? Yes. I'd like you to go before our break, okay?
Tina Fanucchi does have good news for us.
Don't start my time yet, okay? I'm setting up. Good evening.
Start it.
Good evening. Okay, starting. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm so excited to share this very innovative, forward-thinking best practice of philanthropic education. For the last 27 years, I've been involved with nonprofits, from starting as an intern as my senior year at UCSB to now as a philanthropic advisor to family foundations and corporations. I began, I'm just trying this out. I became interested in the world of philanthropic education through a number of ways. One is some of my younger cousins were attending private school in Chicago, and they had philanthropic education ran through their curriculum, and it produced some fabulous results. I began to look into KIPP, K-I-P-P, which you're familiar with, and then the Harlem Children's Project. All had the same type of philanthropic education running through their curriculum. Then, of course, living in Santa Barbara, we've learned that Santa Barbara has more nonprofits per capita than any other city in the United States, I think actually the world. Philanthropy is learned. The majority of us who learn philanthropy in the way of giving of your time, talent, or treasure are through modeling from our parents. So those of us that are very involved, usually you can trace that back to parents that were very involved. So the thought is, shouldn't every child have the opportunity to give back and become very involved? Through my vetting process, I came across this organization called The League. They originated 4 years ago, housed in New Jersey. Began to research their site and found that they had lesson plans called Learning to Give. So I called the ED in New Jersey, told her who I was and that I was interested in this product. She hooked me up with a mentor in Austin, Texas by the name of Linda Brecker. Could not have wanted anything better than Austin, Texas. Why? When I would research best practices for the Santa Barbara Education Foundation, often looked in Austin, Texas, because their demographics mirrored ours in student population, and their community wealth often mirrored ours. The League is a school-based system. It combines state standards-based lesson plans with community service events, teaches students the value of giving, and recognizes them for their efforts.
not wanting to reinvent anything, knowing that service learning is already a part of our works here, I contacted Art Fisher, Irene Falzone, and Ben Romo with the county. I also met with Chuck Slosser, who started the Care and Share for our third grades, and Ron Gallo, the president of the Santa Barbara Foundation. Looking at this curriculum, I am no curriculum expert. I went to those that are. Actually, Robin Sawaski was one of my very first contacts, went to Emilio Handel, went to 3 principals at Catalino, 3 teachers at Catalino, a principal at Catalino, and said, hey, look at this stuff. What do you think? The reaction was, wow, this stuff is really good. So I then went to Peabody, Goleta Valley, Bishop Diego, and Catalino. Introduced this curriculum, and they were all, wow, is this really this easy? This philanthropic curriculum, which is woven through your state standard, already service learning based curriculum. So how this works is it's a teacher-led teacher. You get teachers that are willing to implement this work into their syllabus. Then they fire up other teachers to do it, and it just becomes a ball effect. What it takes is 1-day training a year by the league. Barbara Dilbert comes out, she conducts the training, teaches the teachers how to navigate the website and the Learning to Give, and then the teachers share this with other teachers. Well, I was looking at this like, really, could this really be free? How can you be providing lesson plans of this caliber free? How they do that is they had a philanthropist who 5 years ago said the schools in our country are missing philanthropic education, and put in millions of dollars to hire in experts from every single state to create this curriculum. So let me go back. So I thought, wow, what about a pilot? What if I could get one teacher from every school that would be willing to implement this curriculum? Got one teacher from every school. So then I decided to put together an advisory committee of those that know exactly what they're doing. And here is our advisory committee, but take the C off of Art Fisher because he doesn't have a C in his last name. So where I am today is that I am getting the 1-day seminar. It's $3,500 underwritten to bring Barbara Dilbert out to Santa Barbara. I'm working on getting interested teachers that would like to take this 1-day seminar. So let's say we're taking Kristen Martinez from Goleta Valley. She's a 7th grade social studies teacher. She takes this 1-day seminar. She learns how to coordinate this curriculum into her syllabus, and then she goes out and she shares that with the other 7th grade teachers on campus. So it's not about educating every teacher all the time. Then we work in tandem with Irene Falzone and Kathy with service learning because they have the doing part. So I wanted to show you a little bit. Can you bring up the internet? Can we bring that up on there? Mimi said we could. No, we can't. Oh, well, okay. I wanted to show you how easy it was to look at these lesson plans. What you do is you go to your state. So it would be theleague.org. You go to the state, California. You would go to your grade, let's say 7th grade, and then you have a drop-down box of your core subjects. So you would pick social studies. And then in those social studies, you pick from an array. There's 1,500 lesson plans to choose from. So what most of the teachers have been doing around the country is infusing the lesson plans that the Learning to Give have created with lesson plans that they've created. So I've been working with Kristen Martinez with her lesson plans. She's going into the history of Christianity. So I'm working with her on her work on how to infuse the philanthropy into her lesson plans. And where she goes from there is, now let's get the kids involved. How do we take what we've learned now and do something great? So for instance, Joan Swanson at McKinley is also doing this in the 5th grade. And her kids are a little bit more advanced as far as, because I went to her in September, and they decided to do a candy drive. So not just the candy drive, which was wonderful, they also learned how to vet out programs in Santa Barbara. They chose Transition House. I arranged for Transition House to come and speak to the class. They came and gave the class a little 15-minute presentation on what they do. And now the kids are collecting all their candy from this Halloween, and we'll take it to Transition House. In December, I'll take it to Transition House. In December, they want to do a drive for the Teddy Bear Cancer Foundation, where each child is going to either produce a little stuffed animal or a toy and give to the children of Teddy Bear. So that's it. It's really about paying it forward. I'm donating my time and my resources to help the teachers. This is a turnkey for the teachers. We're not asking you to learn anything else. I'm here to support you. The principals that I've met with are behind it. The idea would be that this learning would go on with these schools, that a teacher from each school would take the one-day training between now and June, whenever when their schedules provide. And then in September, they can all start together with implementing throughout their curriculum little sprinkles of philanthropy. What I think is really important about this is that so many of us that have received programs from the community, from nonprofits, we're not given a mechanism for giving back. We all know how great it is to volunteer, how great it is to share our time and talent. I think all of us, no matter what our income level is, what our treasures are, or what our talents are, should be made aware that all of us have something to give back to this community. And this is a wonderful way to keep our students engaged. And that's my time that says stop.
Any questions from?
First of all, thank you. We know that the children kind of like to give spontaneously, and whether it's to fire victims or a school family with health problems, they sometimes are just spontaneously come up with these ideas, but I think it's really great that you're getting the teachers involved so that they can kind of have a blueprint for how it becomes a way of living and not just a one-time thing. My question was about how this dovetails with the service learning, because that's already a piece.
Well, and you know what I'd like to do is come back again when we can get on the internet. I had asked Mimi for that. She had said I could. I think that slipped through. Okay, so I can show you exactly how that does dovetail.
And by the way, I bet our wellness committee would prefer it's not a candy drive.
Yes.
But it's going to Transition House.
But this is candy that they're collecting during Halloween. So it's having them not go to our students as that normally might.
Right.
So maybe our wellness committee would approve.
It's actually taking it out of the mouths of the students. So it's actually part of the wellness program.
Okay, we have Lane Wheeler who would like to speak on this item.
Thank you, Lane Wheeler, Santa Barbara Teachers Association. As a former teacher who used service learning with my first graders and have done so for a number of years, Santa Barbara Teachers Association really appreciates service learning, and we see it being implemented on a daily basis. In fact, one of my daughters is doing the penny drive right now for San Marcos High School. One of the things that I noticed immediately was the advisory panel has no teachers on it. It has a couple of administrators on it, but there's no teacher input at the advisory level. That's before we could embark on some kind of project like this, we'd love to see at least one teacher representative and hopefully more to really create a balanced approach to what moves forward. The the devil's in the details, and there seems to be a number of details missing. How does this get implemented? What kind of additional responsibilities and extra duties fall on teachers who then choose to participate in this? What kind of additional expenditures might be out of pocket as a part of a service learning project? So those kinds of things yet need to be defined. We'd like to know also how this fits into existing curricula. The curriculum day has become absolutely jam-packed, and when you add new things in, oftentimes something gets left out. And I'd like to make sure that as partners in curriculum development and implementation in the Santa Barbara School District, that we accommodate for that kind of activity. There's an interesting interagency connection to this program, which I'm unaware of in the past, with a private Catholic school and Carpinteria School District, as well as a charter school. And I'm wondering if there are some possible interagency details that need to be worked out with that yet, in terms of how that group gets dealt with. Once again, SBTA has not been informed of the development of this program. I can certainly talk with Robin about that, but we would like to be partners from the ground up as these things get brought forward. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I'm sure that Ms. Panucci will cover all those things. Kate Smith, 1 minute. And you, okay.
So I was just going to say, maybe it'd be helpful for Mr. Wheeler for you to meet with Ms.
Thank you, Tina, for your work. In Santa Barbara, it's hard to give back, though, when so much is taken away from our children in the schools. Philanthropy is a behavior that can be learned, but not forced. Aristotle states, "For that which we need to learn, we learn by doing." If you can find the teachers to add one more curriculum, great. The truth is, if you, the board, and the administration would support
30 seconds.
Thank you. Would support the community service program, democratic education, and if you would promote service learning, Art Fisher's program, then we wouldn't be talking about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. If no objection, we'll take a 10-minute break. Come back about 7 minutes, 10 minutes after 9. And I think we're on F1, presentation by Special Education Local Plan Area, SELPA, Dr. Jerice Butterfield.
We're pleased to have Dr. Butterfield with us tonight. The board had requested information on the SELPA, what the SELPA is, how it operates, and Dr. Butterfield is here tonight to answer those questions.
And the good news is I was told I have 5 minutes. So we might be shorter than planned. Just to go over a little bit about how SELPAs work in general and how Santa Barbara SELPA in particular works. The state ed code requires that districts be a part of a SELPA, but the state ed code does not really define exactly. There are certain pieces of a SELPA that have to be included in the local plan, but each SELPA can very much individualize the way they operate, and our SELPA does operate in a fairly unique manner when you look statewide at SELPA functions. Some of the things that we do for the districts or do in general, we provide, one of our main roles is to provide staff development. We provide staff development primarily in the area of disabilities and all aspects of special education. We provide that staff development for teachers, instructional assistants, administrators, and even parents. Most recently, we have teamed with the Alpha Resource Center, and we did have parents from the Santa Barbara School District attend to put a training on for parents of special needs students. In addition to that, we also provide ongoing support to the special education administrators. We meet with them frequently. We discuss new regulations, policies. I attend state meetings on a monthly basis, and I bring back any new information back to the district special education administrators. That can be in best practices, like I said, regulations, dispute resolution, finances. I also meet periodically with physical representatives from the districts as well to talk about the funding model, the budget, monies that are coming in, reporting requirements, and those kinds of things. Another function that we serve for school districts, which is unique to our SELPA, is that we meet with all of the private school administrators on an annual basis. Collectively, for all of our districts, we hold a South County meeting and a North County meeting, and we seek meaningful consultation from them about what services they want to see provided, which is required by IDEA. And we do that for districts, and then we disseminate that information back to districts. Usually the special ed administrators attend that meeting with those administrators, but that is one way that we support them. We also, this is very unique to our SELPA, provide the oversight and monitoring and funding for students who, via their IEP, are placed into non-public residential placements. And that's something that we do countywide, and I monitor those students. I frequently, sometimes those placements are in the state, sometimes they're out of the state. I personally try to go visit every one of those students, in-state and out-of-state, on an annual basis when I can. And we hold their IEPs, and we work with the district to transition these students back into their home programs. That's always our goal. We provide support to families. We're not just an entity that's there to provide support to districts. We're also there to provide support to families. One of our primary roles is to ensure that students with disabilities are getting the services that they are supposed to get. I mentioned that we meet with physical staff from the districts. We also provide them support in that we send them out spreadsheets on the various funding streams, how it's broken down, when the monies will be coming out, how they'll be coming out. For example, the ARA funding, the IDEA ARA funding, which I believe is the biggest grant from the ARA dollars, is flowing through our office, and we are monitoring that money and allocating that out to districts, which is one of the SELPA's primary roles. That's why I included a piece specific to that, the funding model. All special education funding flows through the SELPA office. And then at that juncture, the state says every SELPA sits down and their governing board decides how that money is allocated. And that's in our local plan. That's called our funding model. Districts have to approve of that, and they have to agree to follow the local plan, and they approve of the funding model. And that's a very, very important piece for your board. You will be getting an update soon, because anytime there are changes made, we send those forward. We try to do it collectively because we make small changes on a frequent basis. So that will be coming to you soon. There are some substantial changes that have been made. We help districts with compliance monitoring. I like to think that we help districts versus the state, but we kind of have become the compliance monitoring unit for the state, especially since they've been had furlough days and whatnot. We are now conducting this year, because Santa Barbara School District is in all districts in the SELPA, not just Santa Barbara, is in a self-review process where we are required to engage in certain tasks and review programs. And I am assisting Santa Barbara with that process. And that's a very meaningful process. This is a time, and it kind of coincides with the FCMAT study, and I think there will be some overlap. There's very specific activities dictated by the state that we have to engage in, but one of those components is we get meaningful feedback from parents of students with IEPs in the district. We look at complaint history, both through CDE and due processes filed. That has to inform our monitoring plan, and the monitoring plan is what drives all of the activities. And then we have what's called an annual performance report. Anybody, the public, the board, the district, can go online and see that data on an annual basis, except that our state is really behind right now, and right now they only have 2006, 2007 up. we're now all anxiously waiting for more current data. And that is like a report card for special education based on the data that flows through the from the district, through the SELPA, to the state. And you can see, you know, where the areas that are strong versus where there are areas of weakness. And all of the yes answers on this actual report, the yes answers are not a good thing. That means yes, action is needed. That will go into the monitoring plan, and SELPA is overseeing that process. Child find activities. The SELPA oversees certain aspects of child find for districts. We advertise in the local newspapers, send out brochures, talk to the community, disseminate information. We run a website, and you'll see that on the front page, sbcselpa.org. To also try and get information out to our parents. Our local plan, our interagency agreements, all of that is now online, and that is something new to the SELPA in the last couple years. So that is one of our important activities. We assist districts with that. Districts also have an obligation to engage in child find activities, and they do that continuously at the site levels. But we kind of do the broader community piece of that. We oversee the electronic submission of data. I think I kind of mentioned that. It's called CaseMIS. That goes to the state, and it comes to us through the district via the electronic IEP program, which is SACE. So we provide support. In fact, I think we just did a big training for the district on SACE. We oversee that process. I mentioned the website. We've really been working on our website, and we're excited about it. You now can see all of the trainings that are out there and available, and I think that was kind of an area of weakness because I don't think information was readily getting to Santa Barbara School District staff members. They can now go to the website. They can apply for training online. We have online training. We have university credit training. We have local on-site trainings. We have a variety of trainings. We're very excited. We just add the autism certification training. We're admonishing districts to make sure their instructional assistants and credentialed staff members that work with students with autism get that training. We also oversee resource specialist certification. We actually do that for some of the other counties around too, as well as Santa Barbara. We maintain the local plan. When any entity proposes that we change a policy, we take that to the JPA board and CAC in various forums, meet with special ed directors, talk about it, get input, and then that goes to the JPA board, and then we are responsible for revising policy accordingly. That kind of sums up the major activities of SELPA and how we support and work with and interact with districts. The SELPA is here to serve you. That's basically why we have a SELPA, to serve you, to serve the public. We want to work with you. We really want Santa Barbara School District staff to attend our meetings. I've been working with Dr. Sarvis on that. That's a very important aspect of our SELPA system, disseminating that information and making sure the support is provided. I frequently will help districts with dispute resolution, trying to reach solutions with families. A big change in our SELPA recently that probably is a question your board may be having is, it used to be Santa Barbara SELPA kept a lot of money off the top. We still have a kind of what you would call an off-the-top model, where SELPA takes a big portion of the special ed funding, keeps it at SELPA level, and then disperses that money for various services like the private school student placements that are IEP placements that I talked about, regional program students. That's all fully funded off the top. That's very unique to our SELPA. Right now we only have one program, and that's for our severely handicapped students. Districts are now paying 50%, and we're looking at moving more towards a pay-as-you-go model. To give districts incentives to try and serve their own students and also allow districts more control over their funds. I think that pretty much sums up the primary supports and the services that we provide at the SELPA level. Are there any questions? Just speak really loud if you have a question.
In the FICMAT report, one of the areas was our relationship with SELPA.
Uh-huh.
And the basic recommendation was that Mr. Jack Lucas was doing a report, and therefore we should do nothing at this moment pending that report. Now, I understand Jack Lucas has made his report. Can you tell us what is going on in SELPA relating to that report, and does anything affect us?
Yeah, there are things that will affect you. And that's why it's important that your director meets with our directors, that you attend JPA board meetings. Basically, we had a Paul Goldfinger study completed the prior year that looked at our funding model. Because our funding model has some really unique pieces in it that kind of need fixed. Or at least Jack Lucas and Paul Goldfinger feel that they need fixed. And I think there were some superintendents out there that felt they needed fixed too, and that's why that was one of the charges I was given upon becoming the SELPA director. Jack Lucas specifically looked at regional program costs and services. And yes, that report is available. I certainly can get you copies of that if you would like that. It is driving funding model recommendations as we speak. I have been bringing recommendations. I've been forming ad hoc subcommittees. I know Meg here is on that subcommittee, so she's very familiar with the Jack Lucas report and the Paul Goldfinger report, and she's one of our active members on that committee. So she's looking out for Santa Barbara. We're looking at various funding model changes as a result of that report, and we are right now in the process of prioritizing those changes. One of them I kind of mentioned, and that was to go to a pay-as-you-go model. One of the findings of that report was that we have very disparate use, and it's not just a North County, South County thing. That's not what it is. It's disparate between districts. We have districts that use very little service and districts that are using a lot of service, and we really don't know why. Well, the districts that aren't using a lot of service have figured out that they're paying for everybody else's service, and there's a concern about that. We like to embrace the concept in our SELPA that these are our kids and we care about them all and we want to serve them, but I think as resources get tighter and superintendents change over time, different things change, I think that focus has shifted a little. And I think districts are feeling like we don't have enough control over our special education dollars. We want to see more of those dollars come back to our district, and we choose how to spend them. And that's kind of the movement that I'm seeing, and I think Jack Lucas, in his report and recommendations, pretty much agrees with that. And there's also some kind of unusual pieces in, for example, we have a piece called SDC Revenue Limit Offset, where you count your number of SDC students and then you get a revenue offset for that. Well, we no longer even submit that data to the state. We don't even call them SDC RSP anymore as far as the state is concerned in the data that we submit. So we've had to come up with our own definitions, and that has been really problematic because a district can play with that number and really shift the funding of another district. So there's pieces like that that we are working on, but we don't want the goal. I can tell you what my goal is and what the board's goal is. We don't want to upset the apple cart all at once. Whatever changes are going to be implemented, there's going to be, and just based on the changes that we recently looked at, there's going to be changes that really benefit secondary districts. There's going to be changes that really benefit elementary. You sit in a pretty good position as far as that's concerned because you're both. But that's a concern. We don't want to put anybody into a physical crisis all of a sudden. So whatever plan we come up with and funding model changes and recommendations we make will probably be phased in over a certain time period.
Okay. Thank you. I have a copy of the Jack Lucas report, but I don't know if other members might want it, so it might be a good idea to
if
get it for us.
somebody will email me your email or
I'll see it that all the board members
I have
get
a
it.
copy, yeah.
I can get that to you. Just let me know how I need to get that to
Mrs.
you. and I
Deacon?
will.
Oh, can I ask one quick question? When we're talking about multiple districts in the SELPA, it's my understanding with the RIDEA funds that in the first pass, the money needs to be spent in order to qualify for the second round.
Yeah,
And-
that's correct.
And is it?
You get it based on spending it.
Right, and does that have to happen amongst all the districts in our SELPA? Do they
No.
all need to spend
No,
all
in
their
fact,
money?
it's created a lot of work for my office because we are allocating the second go-round when it comes in. We haven't received it yet, but basically, and you have to decide how our JPA board made the recommendation that we allocate it based on who spent it. So we're having to keep close records of who spent what and what percentage it was of the total and how much you'll get on the next go-round. In the end, everybody will get their money. You won't lose your money. And I know one district that doesn't want to spend it up front. They want to save it all till the end because they know they have a very specific need at the end and that's what they want to do.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you. You've been involved in numerous interviews for special ed directors, executive director, probably specialists, I'm not sure. Plus, you've been deeply involved in the stakeholders groups. You know, so I know that you and SELPA very much want to integrate, deal with us, and we want to deal with you. So please keep us informed of what's going on, and if you need help, let us know. I know that Tom will be working with you, and hopefully Marcia, and and so we want the relationship, and we want the education, and we want to know what's happening. So
Well, great. We really want that relationship too.
thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have a couple of public comments on these.
Okay.
This is,
This was F1.
yes. Carolyn Renard. Is Carolyn still here? No. Okay. Kate Smith.
Kate, you've already had your allocated 10 minutes, so we're letting you come again, but keep in mind, we have some of these situations where we need to, we'll give you 1 minute here.
Thank you. I want to commend Jerice Butterfield. She is a miracle worker. When former SELPA director Marcia McClish was at the helm, with her bulldog lawyer Sharon Watt, our SELPA was notorious and known for its vicious litigation. It was known throughout the United States. Our SELPA bylaws were written by Bill Cerrone, and he placed himself permanently on the JPA board. Bill Cerrone uses the SELPA funds as his cookie jar, and every summer he submits bills, hundreds of
20
thousands of
seconds.
dollars. Oh, well, okay. Let's see. Let's go down to where I talk about Tom Guajardo did come to a JPA meeting, but he didn't open the board packet, didn't look at the agenda. He texted and read the entire meeting. When I confronted him, he said he didn't have to be there and that he can text, read, and listen to the discussion
Thank
at
you,
the
Ms.
same time. Newsflash,
Ms.
Mr.
Smith,
Guajardo,
thank you.
no.
Your time is up.
Presentation by the Santa Barbara County Education Office, Dr. Florine Bednarsh.
And Dr. Bednarsh is here to talk about how the county operates, programs run by the county, how they interface with the district programs. And she has a PowerPoint.
And keep in mind, we have all received the PowerPoint and have read it in detail.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm going to talk to you about specifically the department that I oversee in special education. And I'm going to start by just sharing, this is our pie representing our budget for the County Education Office. And the County Education Office is an intermediary entity between the California Department of Education and the school districts. But what people are often surprised to learn is that 89% of the budget actually is for restricted programs that specifically support students. And of that pie, 44% of that represents the programs that I oversee, special education. So those are the programs that I'm going to be talking about tonight, with a couple add-ons of some grants that we also operate under my department. So the first one, this is actually one of our grants. It isn't a special education program. It's a program called Welcome Every Baby. It's a program that is under the auspices of First Five, and it was operated by a nonprofit for 7 years, and they lost their funding, and an RFP was put out. And our office was encouraged to apply for it as part of a multi-agency collaborative, and we did. So we've been operating it for 3 years. It's the only universal home program in the state of California. All parents who either move in or give birth to a baby and all the way up through 9 months are eligible for the service at no cost. It's a voluntary program offered to the parents in the hospital. We have a visit within the first 48 hours where the nurse goes out to the home and does a well baby check and a full head to toe check of the mother, and sits with the mother and the father and the new baby and answers any questions they have, uses anticipatory guidance to talk about the expectations that the parents will and the things that they may see, supports lactation, answers any questions. At 1 month, we have an infant home visitor who is a master's level with child development background. Our infant home visitors go out at 1 month, and their primary purpose at that time is to listen to the parents and answer and help with their needs. And we have a secondary level of supports in looking at postpartum depression, assessing for that, and also supporting lactation. We come back again at 4 months, and at 4 months we do a developmental screening and also postpartum depression screening. And then finally at 9 months we come and again do a developmental screening. And a primary role for us, we're not case managers, we're just helping the parents learn about their community and connect them with the multiple resources that serve that population from 0 to 9 months. We also operate Early Start. This is a program that is a mandate of regional centers. It's not a mandate of school districts, but before it was mandated, several school districts and/or county offices served babies with special needs, and we were one of those. So we were serving 125 babies in this county, and when the mandate went to regional center, the school districts that were serving babies continued to have that mandate. So we have 125 babies throughout the county. These are babies who are either at risk or have developmental disabilities, and it's a program that goes to the babies wherever they are in their natural environments, primarily into their homes. We serve babies across the county, and we have 4 centers, one in Santa Maria, one in Lompoc, one in the Buellton area, and one in Santa Barbara. And our centers are not to provide services at the centers. It's not a center-based model, but we do bring parents for trainings to the centers, and then we also will serve special needs babies, for example, babies that who are hearing impaired and need supplemental services at those centers. In the Santa Barbara School District, we are currently serving 22 of your babies. We have another program which is not special education. It's also grant funded. It's called CATCH, Child Assistance Team Creating Hope, and it is a program for at-risk preschoolers. It's preschoolers who we get referrals for special education, but they don't qualify for special ed. They're being referred because they're having trouble sitting and working in a preschool environment. They may have some challenges around attention deficit. They may have some issues around interrelating with children. So we use a curriculum that is a research evidence-based curriculum called Second Step, and it's a curriculum that teaches children using puppets, and this is an example of it, how to relate to their peers and get along. And we actually are very active in many of your state preschools as well as preschools across the county. Any preschool that makes a referral, private, public. Then we serve preschool for special education. We serve what we call our special day class model. These are students who need more than 50% of their day supported in their preschools. We are very proud that we are a model demonstration site for the state because we have a large amount of opportunities for full inclusion for our children. So we are in private preschools, we are in state preschools, we are in Head Starts, and we also operate 2 of our own preschool programs where we have tuition-paying children and students with disabilities working together. So these numbers here represent how many children from Santa Barbara we have in our preschool programs in South County. So we're at Discoveries, which is a private preschool. We have 2 kids there. Franklin, which is one of your preschools, your state preschool. We have a child in that program right now. We have 6 children at Garden, and Garden is our county-owned program where we operate the program both for the typically developing children and the children with special needs. We're at Goleta Head Start. We have 2 Santa Barbara kids there. At Kindekirk, 4 children. Santa Barbara LEAP is our class for children with autism. It stands for Learning Enrichment Autism Program, and it is a program that is a supplement to our other preschool programs. So when we have children that have autism and need some supplemental programs, we use a variety of research evidence-based methodologies with those children and give them extra support. A lot of those children are in a combination model where they attend LEAP either in the morning or afternoon and then attend one of our full inclusion programs. We're at Storyteller. We're at Las Flores, which is one of your state preschools. We're at Santa Barbara City College Kinko's, St. Mark, which is a private preschool. Cottage Children's Center, which is a brand new experience this year. Hope for Kids, which is also a new program this year. So we have a total of 49 students from Santa Barbara School District in our preschool program. We also operate a program called Preschool Specialist, and that's a program for students who primarily have speech needs, maybe some minor needs around gross motor or fine motor or cognitive, but primarily speech. For those programs, it's an itinerant program, so we go to those children wherever they are. It may be in a private preschool, it may be in their home, and we provide those services based on what the IEP says. Then, moving up in age, we serve students with severe and profound disabilities. These are students that typically are functioning at a cognitive level 24 months and under, who have multiple needs, including medical needs. Some of our students are in need of support for all of their life activities, eating, toileting. We work with all of their IEP goals. We work with them in age-appropriate campuses at their sites. So in Santa Barbara, your children, this is a program that's available for children all South County. It's available county-wide, but I'm sharing with you just the ones where we have Santa Barbara children. So we have 2 classes at Hollister, an upper and lower elementary, and there's 5 Santa Barbara children being served there. We're at Goleta Valley Junior High, and we have 6 students there. We have 2 classes at Dos Pueblos High School for a total of 15. And then we have our Mission community-based class, which is emphasizing the transition from school to the adult world. So we work primarily on activities out in the community, learning to bank and shop and use the bus, et cetera. Then we have our Centers for Therapeutic Education. This is a program for students who are identified as emotionally disturbed. It's a collaborative between us and mental health, so the students are getting both psychological counseling on their cognitive needs from the school staff and on their mental health needs from mental health staff. We operate only the elementary program for Santa Barbara. Your staff that you hire operate the secondary program. And the elementary programs are available, again, to all South counties. So at Hope School, which has an upper and lower elementary, we're serving children from Carpinteria, Goleta, Hope, Montecito, and we have 3 students from Santa Barbara. And then the juvenile court and community schools, which are El Puente, the Villa, and Los Robles High School. And these are the students that are placed at these sites, and we have responsibility for the students that have IEPs, either that come in with IEPs or that we identify as needing IEPs. We also have a supplemental service that we offer to all of our districts, augmentative and assistive technology and computer support. Debbie Grant is our person that provides that service. Debbie is a nationally recognized expert in assistive technology, and she provides assessments for students across our county. She also does what we call make and takes, where teachers can come to her office, which is located centrally for our county in Buellton, and she works with the teachers to develop materials that are adapted to work with children with special needs. And then we hire all of the staff that support all of those programs. So we hire under our office adapted physical education specialists, speech and language specialists. We do hire the occupational therapists for all of the districts in the South County. It's a regional program. And we hire school nurses and psychologists, vocational advisors and assistants, and behavior specialists. So in total, we serve 306 students from the Santa Barbara school districts. Are there any questions?
You do all of this?
Yes, with help, with a lot of help from my friends.
You're an angel. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Comments? Questions? It's fantastic.
Well, thank you. We're very proud of our programs. We have a wonderful staff. We have a lot of staff who have worked for us for many, many years, and we really work hard to meet the needs of our students.
Yeah, it's a special need.
Thank you.
F4, update on status of special education. Mr. Guardo?
Thank you, Vice President Herron. And I also want to extend an appreciation to Jerice Butterfield. Very helpful. We've met numerous times and really supportive in terms of our self-review that we're doing now, as well as you mentioned, Mr. Herron, her support on the interviews and the FICMAT stakeholder group. Florine Bednarsh is her work with the county and what we took some of our team over and met with them for 2 full hours, and she brought her specialists in and they walked us through every service available, and my response was exactly the same. My gosh, you do all of that. Kathy Breen is here also, and probably Florine's right-hand person there, so I really appreciate the three of you being here this evening. Just three things. One, wanted to get back in response to a question that arose at the last board meeting, and we have gone back to staff and have arranged our staff in terms of the elementary director, that'll be Dr. Carrie Mills, and myself as the executive director, and then we are posted right now for the secondary director, and in the meanwhile, Dr. Carol Miller and I are supporting that effort. Quick update on that, we do have interviews scheduled for our secondary director. We have 4 people that we'll be interviewing and are putting together a committee now for those interviews. Secondly is on the parent resource for special education, we do have that posted now. It is for 15 to 18 hours per week, and the deadline is November 4th. If you'll recall, at a previous board meeting, you wanted the job description increased, and the salary was also increased somewhat. So we've done that. And although the deadline is still about a week away, we're starting to get some good quality people applying. So we're pleased to see that. And the last thing that I want to report on is, as was mentioned by Dr. Butterfield, every 4 years you're required to have a special education review. Part of that is making sure that we have a team together, do some training, and we've done that and had quite a bit of cross-representation across the district and different positions. And part of that also is a requirement from the California Department of Education to be able to have a parent evening to get some input. And they're very specific. They have a survey with 27 questions that you go through. And we did that last week. We're required to have at least 20% of our special education parents participating. Roughly for us, that's about 365 parents. We didn't get them all that night, but we are receiving others because we sent hard copies out to the schools. So we're receiving those, and some parents are mailing them in. And we're also going to have surveys available at the 3 parent forums coming up starting tomorrow night, which Carol will talk about in more detail in her report. And so that's quick status. Questions?
Have you met with Rosa, the resource person from last year, and gotten any feedback from her on the job and what was going on and how it worked?
You know, I've not had the pleasure of meeting her, but I can certainly set up an appointment to follow up with her.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Deacon?
There was some talk about splitting that position at one point. Did you determine that that wasn't the way you wanted to go, or?
Well, Carol and I touched bases on that today. The way it's, I got to stop putting my glasses away. The way the posting reads is 15 to 18 hours per week. Liaison between special ed department parents, so it really doesn't stipulate whether it's one or multiple people. I think one of our intents is to see if we can do some, this is outreach to the parents of the community, and we would like to be able to reach out to the, at least the 2 largest groups that we have in the community. So that's certainly something that Carol and I have talked about today, about the possibility of doing that.
One of the reasons for the increase in compensation level was we were talking about 2 people at that time, possible 2 people.
Exactly.
Especially one that speaks Spanish. Anything else? Anything on tomorrow's forum?
Dr. Carol Miller.
I didn't want to end that topic.
No, you didn't. Good evening. I would like to provide an update during my last few weeks. I conducted 2 resolution sessions and facilitated 4 IEP meetings, and Dr. Carrie Mills and I attended the Special Education Advisory SEEK meeting to collaborate with parents. We had a lot of great discussion. I did a lot of talking, maybe too much talking. And I'd like to provide an update on the 3 upcoming community input forums, and Dr. Sarvis had shared the dates earlier. And tomorrow night will be our first forum. And we're very interested in hearing from parents with children of special needs to share their ideas on our restructuring ideas in special education, or our restructuring efforts in special education. And participants are welcome to talk about what's working well for their children, what we need to do to improve, and share some positive solutions for that process. And also they can address FCMAT recommendations or things that FCMAT left out of the study, and we're looking for all kinds of all kinds of input. We are looking for 2-way communication, and we have several ways to provide opportunity to communicate. We will encourage written as well as verbal. We'll provide some written input forms, and also if folks are uncomfortable feeling that they would want to speak at the forums, we would encourage them to meet privately with us, confidentially, so we respect everything that they're sharing. And we also will have a thinking paper that takes the several of the categories, actually about 12 of the 16 different categories, and highlights just general terms or themes of each of those categories. And that could be used as a focus paper to talk, or we will have the FCMAT recommendations there as well. We want it to be an open discussion, talk about the beef of the programs, and we're saying it's a new day, and we want some real positive dialogue and solution sharing. We've advertised it heavily, and I know we're going to have press there tomorrow to help us out. And I asked the press if they wanted to facilitate, and they said no.
Well, I personally was very impressed with the thinking paper.
Okay.
I thought that was a good synopsis. It narrowed it down and gives a lot of opportunity for discussion just based upon that one piece of paper. So I thought was a lot of time and effort went into that, but much appreciated.
Great. And we will have those available there tomorrow night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do not have any public comment. Our one sheet is from a speaker who has already exceeded the time, a lot of time. So any speakers who fall into that category are welcome to submit written comments to the board.
Item F5, discussion of process and timeline for our favorite subject, budget cuts.
And Eric Smith, our deputy superintendent, will talk us through this.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. Dr. Miller talked about the beef of the program. I'm going to talk about being down to the bone once again. The State Department of Finance recently reported that general fund revenues for the month of September this year were off $810 million versus the projection. When you couple that with the year-end deficit for fiscal year 8-9, we're looking at $948 million. We're looking at a $1.9 billion imbalance just based on budget versus actual. So knowing that this is the state's reality and knowing that the state's reality usually trickles down to be our reality, we think it's prudent to establish a process and timeline for budget reductions in anticipation of not only mid-year cuts, but also significant cuts that could occur going into the 10-11 fiscal year. And as we know from the $252 per ADA one-time reduction, basic aid districts will probably not be immune. So also knowing that the board wanted to start this process sooner rather than later, we've established a time frame that basically would allow us to identify a target and actually look at making these reductions, probably both in program and personnel, prior to the March 15th certificated layoff deadline. I will have to point out, however, that embarking on this timeline, although ambitious, also poses some risk. And that risk is that in the event that we do not over-notice enough and there is significant changes either at the May revise or at the final adoption of the state budget, we could be caught in a place where we don't want to be. So I think one of the things we need to do is carefully analyze at the first interim report, both in our multi-year projection and also looking at budget versus projected actuals, are our reserves going to be sufficient enough, and does the board feel comfortable enough to basically take that level of risk? But I think at this point in time, we can move forward with the time frame and adjust it if we need. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. As you can see, the time frame is specified as basically with the first interim report and multi-year projections. We would establish a target amount, that's December 15th, 2009. On January 12th, we'll have a report on the governor's 2010-2011 proposed education budget and make a revision to that budget target amount if necessary. We would be simultaneously putting together a list of reductions, hopefully with a first reading of that budget reduction plan on February 9th, 2010. And then hopefully have a second and final reading of budget reduction plan on February 23rd, 2010, prior to the March 15th statutory deadline. I am a little bit concerned about the amount of input we can get from stakeholders. I'm not sure that Dr. Sarvis and I can hit every single site like we did last year relative to this time frame. So I'm just pointing that out for the board's consideration as well.
Any comments? Ms. Cordero?
Well, I just had I guess a question regarding the comment about the risk, because I understand that we're always in that position, because the May revise, obviously, sometimes we don't even get it in May, but even if we do get it in May, comes after the March 15th deadline. So I'm not sure how this timeline puts us at any greater risk than if we didn't have this timeline.
I think I can elucidate that for you. Generally, what the State Department of Finance looks at is the May revise is based on basically a extrapolation of revenue and expenditure estimates through April. And so basically, if things are going off the cliff, what I'm saying is that the budgeted amount based on the state's projection in January could be significantly changed in May. And so generally most school districts follow those milestones. And as you get closer to the June 30th adoption, in theory, you have greater certainty about what's going to occur. And you make a good point. I mean, we're basically living in an environment where it's uncertainty 365 days a year, but that's generally the industry standard. I think one of the things that we need to be prepared for, and I understand the board would like to make these decisions sooner rather than later, so we're not in the uncomfortable position of noticing all these teachers and then bringing a significant amount of them back. I'm just saying that we probably need to look both at the amount of reserves we have or project to have at first interim, because if something catastrophic happens and it basically adversely affects your reserves, you could be in a situation, depending on what your projected ending fund balance, put you in a negative fund balance situation, and nobody wants to be in that situation.
But the bottom line, I think, that we're going to have to grapple with is that we're going to continue to have to do what we hate doing.
Absolutely.
Which is send out many more pink slips than we hope we're going to have to actually.
Although the difference here would be is that we've noticed prior to making those program reductions, so we've cast a wider net in the past. In theory, this would allow you to attack it more surgically, but there is an element of risk attached. That's all I'm trying to stress.
Well, and I think I favor this targeted approach when we can, and it gives us a little bit more time, well, not at the front end, but at the other end to think about it. Will by doing this earlier, will it allow us to be any more nimble in terms of letting people know sooner that they might have their jobs back? I mean, once the May revise comes?
I'm not sure it will allow us to be that much sooner. I think you're going to end up with a more focused and narrow scope, so it
maybe
won't be
less
as wide.
people, less
Absolutely.
people would be affected.
And that's where you take the risk.
Yeah.
I just had a couple questions based upon things I've read recently. Goleta Valley Basic Aid came up revenue short. I mean, they made several hundred, Goleta School District, made several cuts. And if I recall, our basic aid discussion was premised on losing attendance. And what I'm hearing is we might have gained attendance even though we eliminated inter-district. Do those factors, have we looked at those factors as how it affects our basic aid?
You will be looking at all of that in December. But we hear conflicting information from the various basic aid districts about, assessed valuation increases. We were just at a meeting of all of them a little while ago, and we're hearing around the table, 6%, 8%, and we're scratching our heads saying, well, we're looking at less than 1 in the elementary and a little over 2. How does that compute? So I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure we're comparing apples to apples there. But all that will have to be considered. And the other thing too is we may know sooner than January if there's a mid-year cut, how that's going to affect basic aid districts, and then based on what's happening in the governor's January proposal, if it's going to adversely affect basic aid districts as well. So that's why I said there's a possibility in the second bullet item we'd have to revise our targeted amount at that point in time.
Anything else? Well, we look forward to December 15th.
Thank you.
And we will move forward with these dates.
Yes. F6.
Well, Dave Hetjunk has been waiting a long time to tell us about unfunded construction projects.
And maybe you can do it in 5 minutes instead of 15?
I can, yes.
Good.
we can speed this up. Basically, there's not much in this report that hasn't been reported to the board previously. We still have some projects in the elementary district that were reduced due to a lack of funds. Those modernization projects that were scheduled for the 4 elementary sites listed in the attachment that were scaled back to be only code required and ADA required modernization only. The remainder of those projects does not at this time have a funding source. And then on that previous correspondence, we had the voice over IP as a nice thing to add that we'd like to do that would end up meaning we spending capital funds and saving money in the general fund because it would reduce our phone bill significantly. The other item in the elementary district is the Washington Portable relocation. We have a contract award. I believe all of the paperwork and the performance bonds and the payments bonds are in. The bonds have been sent for recording to the county office, and we expect that contractor to be mobilizing on that site any day if they have not yet started. So our projects from the Measure I-98 are basically winding down. We still have a portable restroom building that is required under our lawsuit settlement to be installed at Peabody Charter School. The company that was originally awarded that contract is bankrupt, and we are working with legal counsel to get that contract voided so we can go out with another contract. The good news is we've only sent them $6,000 on a $80,000 project. So we're not, and hopefully we can recoup that. If you've been by Peabody Charter lately, you'll notice that the ramp in front is almost complete. The contractor had a few errors, and he's going back and correcting those, and also the stage lift and the ADA ramp at McKinley are winding down. And so,
How about the sewer at McKinley?
the sewer at McKinley, I'm going to ask you on the meeting on the 3rd to approve an emergency resolution to bypass the bidding project for repair. That's all explained in the agenda item, but basically, the sewer where it has failed is on the hillside behind above Ladera. It's not a good place or a safe place to go dig, and there's alternatives to connect to a city sewer in another location. I don't yet have a final cost estimate on that, but but we have engineers who are currently designing that fix, and the design wouldn't be complete before November 3rd, and so the timing for the 3rd meeting will be about right, and we expect to fund that with reserves we have in our deferred maintenance program, which was why we keep a balance in there for when a roof or a sewer or something like that fails, we have money to fix it without having to dip into the general fund.
Thank you.
For the secondary district, the two main unfunded projects remain the kitchen at Santa Barbara High School and the heating and ventilating upgrade at Dos Pueblos High School. Good news and bad news. I guess the good news is that at this kitchen, we also have a component of that project that is a CTE, Career Technical Education portion of that project that has a grant. We have not accessed that grant, but if we get a funding source for the kitchen, we can access that money. The Dos Pueblos heating and ventilation upgrade can be done in phases. That's multiple buildings. You can separate those buildings and do them. And in fact, we probably want to look at that in the future as probably maybe whittling away at that using developer fees or some other funds as they become available. I know we had a situation where this year where due to budget cuts, the district did not make its contribution to the deferred maintenance fund, and we cut over $500,000 to the maintenance fund. So we're tightening our budget. We're looking real closely at priorities. We also have some intercoms and waterproofing and other things that were on that list of priorities for unfunded Measure V, and of course then the long list on the back that is alphabetized, not prioritized, of portions that weren't done. I don't know if the board wants to entertain in the future a discussion on future bonds for either district, and if so, would they consider a polling like we did for Measures H and I? Is there any interest? Do you feel the community might support this? And maybe in the future, we can have a board discussion, or you can have it right now, but Mr. Herons wants to keep it short.
I think that's good. I personally think that's the kind of discussion for a full board to talk about.
While Dave's here, I would like him to point out the escalators that are built into the elementary. So just as an example, if we did go to the voters and ask for bond construction money a year from now, what point would we be hitting in this construction timeline here on the construction calendar on your elementary list? Would we be talking about 11, 12 construction at 28 million?
10, you'd probably be talking 10, 11, because some of these projects have plans ready to go. The libraries would take longer because Washington doesn't have a design, and Adams' design is over 5 years old and would have to be redesigned and resubmitted. You can only ask for extensions for so long, so that project will have to meet all the new codes, and codes are changing this year. So there'll be some architect fees and some time in going back and doing those, but we could start some of those projects sooner. In addition, if we did decide to go that route, I'd want to get with the architects of record and maybe spend a little bit of money and get some updates. I know that included with the money that we've paid the architect, they go out to an outside firm in Los Angeles, a very reliable firm that does a really detailed breakdown of the cost estimates for these projects. And to keep going back on the same project and asking for more cost estimates, the architect isn't really being paid for that in his initial proposal. He's being paid for one. But we could always go out and ask for updated proposals on these elementary projects as well as any secondary projects. I know I noticed it on the main kitchen. At some point in time, I listed it at 2.2 million. At some point in time, I listed it at 2.3. It's old enough now where if we decided to go through with that, we probably want it to spend the money to get a new estimate. And I tried to go back and look at when these estimates were given to give you an idea of what year dollars those estimates were in this report. I think some are $2006 and some are 2007. But we do have needs. And I know that there was a previous discussion about closing campuses, and it'd be real tough to close Santa Barbara High School without having an active kitchen. I think our Director of Nutrition Services is doing an outstanding job getting participation there without a kitchen. And we've also overtaxed some of our other kitchens because that kitchen did prepare meals for other sites, and now those functions have been transferred to places like Santa Barbara Junior High and La Cumbre Junior High.
Mrs. Deacon?
And you make a good case why that kitchen is so important. I mean, I know the bond committee has, ranks the priorities, but I think as a board member, I think that Santa Barbara kitchen is really at the top of the list. Are we in jeopardy of those plans falling out of code, depending on how long we go?
No, those plans are probably a year and a half old, 2 years old, so we have time yet. Our architects automatically apply for those extensions.
Okay. How much did the polling study cost that when you went out for Measure H and I? Does anyone remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember. I will get you that information.
Okay. And was that general fund money, or where did that money come from?
That was general fund money, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can't use our money for that, can we?
Mrs. Cordero?
I just have sort of a follow-up question to Ms. Deacon's question. For the main kitchen upgrade, there's a possibility of accessing, I don't know, if matching funds or some additional funds?
It would be matching funds.
Matching funds. Do we run the risk of losing access to those matching funds as we delay this process?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
City College lost all of its matching funds for almost every one of the projects that we voted on.
Now, there is CTE funds available. There may be another round. I mean, we could go back and get to the back of the line and get in line and be further down the road as far as our timelines of accessing the money, giving up this grant, or losing this grant and then going after another grant with remaining funds. I imagine some other districts may do that also, but, you know, there's a risk, and there's a risk to that.
Okay, thank you. Can you do F7, report on sustainable, oh,
I'm sorry, we did have a public comment on F6.
Oh, okay.
Lane Wheeler. ¿Quieres hablar en español?
Sí,
Okay.
gracias. So Lane Wheeler again, Santa Barbara Teachers Association. We've had a number of safety complaints this year, particularly, I don't know if it's global warming, but I'm going to blame most things on global warming, including my wife being upset with me occasionally. But we have had a number of reports of classrooms that have reached into 90 degrees. I know we live in Camelot, and that's not a regular condition as it might be in Los Angeles or in the desert areas. But we do have a number of those classrooms that get particularly hot, and there are very limited ways to address that at the school sites. I know Dos Pueblos, I've had a number of complaints this year from them. McKinley has been an ongoing one. I would ask that some of these priorities be examined again. I know that when I talked to Mr. Hetjonk, or got a report from Mr. Hetjonk, that teachers were asked to were consulted on this and asked for them to help prioritize what they wanted at school sites. And at the time, a new theater or a new swimming pool was very prominent in their decision making. However, I believe that might be something getting out to the 8 to 10 year cycle. Oftentimes those staffs have been replaced by other folks, and maybe a refocusing before some of these programs go forward. Certainly libraries are an essential part of all of our school sites, but without elementary librarians, the idea of moving forward in that regard certainly I think may need to be brought into the area of questioning. But once again, trying to create the most comfortable and safe work environments for both students and staff is an essential element, I think, of this work. And I would ask you to refocus once again before you move forward on any of these. I'm not sure that there's a pot of money sitting out there to do this, but certainly to think about that prior to committing dollars to some of these. I know there's some immediate ones here, but once again, please look at refocusing the direction of these before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's a good point.
Very good point.
Well taken.
Report on sustainability initiatives. F7.
I'll try and keep this one brief also. As part of the agenda item, I've listed energy efficient upgrades that we've been able to accomplish at our elementary and secondary schools with our I-98 and our Measure V bond funds. Also then, some current efforts that we're doing within the district, both in the facilities department and in the purchasing department. And then lastly, I talk about some of the things that we may want to consider for the future. And some of the things that we've investigated in the past have been cogenerations for our pools. It didn't pencil out at the time. Carl Mayrose has spent a great deal of time researching photovoltaics. You approved tonight for us to attend the Coalition for Adequate School Housing Conference in Sacramento early next year. In looking at that schedule, I'd say probably 30 to 40% of the tentative conferences have something to do with energy or green or sustainability or something along that line. I'm sure there'll be plenty of information, hopefully, about anything new that's coming out as funding. We've met with a couple private energy firms. Peabody Charter has also done the same. They're looking at their energy costs. While we may not at this time save a great deal of money by putting photovoltaics on a site and entering into a power purchase agreement, we feel that at worst it would be cost neutral, and at best we may realize some savings. We have a person who's now with the city of Santa Barbara who was at Santa Barbara City College, who's been very involved in that and has accomplished projects at both institutions. He's a wealth of information. Those are some of the big picture items. As far as the small picture, there's a lot of things that we could be doing, but may require some change in board policy. We have a lot of vending machines that are out there running 24 hours a day. There are controls that are made for those machines that would shut them down during non-peak times. You just can't put perishables in there that need constant refrigeration like a ham sandwich. But it would sure work for all drinks and things like that. And 3 school districts are currently in the process, or their boards are considering charging for personal appliances. You'll notice some of the things that I listed in here that we have out in our classrooms. We have air conditioners, we have heaters, portable ones. We have air conditioners that are plugged in with a little tube sticking out the window to suck in, out an open window, to suck in the air, and that's really burning up some power. We have a lot of classrooms with microwaves, refrigerators, hot plates, toaster ovens. It's out there and it's consuming a lot of power. What these districts are doing is saying, okay, people, we're not going to take these appliances away, but there's going to be a charge if you want to have them. And their 2 districts are actually compiling a fee schedule. They're making sure that first of all, that the appliance is Energy Star compliant, and then there's a rate. If you want a refrigerator, it's going to cost you this much a year. Different methods of collecting, whether it be collecting by the sites with a portion staying there, and then you get a different colored sticker to put on your appliance every year to show that you've paid. And if appliance is there without a sticker, you're asked to remove it.
And we'll put that item on the budget cut menu because we're always looking for ideas.
There's one district that is actually doing payroll deduction. I would not recommend that. That's got to be a nightmare. Hopefully they're a real small district without a lot of employees. But there are ways to look at saving energy. I know that. Like I say, we've gone to a lot more efficient lighting. We've gone to sensors where we can. Our schools are getting better at covering the pools at night as awareness and information flows out. It seems we're doing a better job. Also, as far as sustainability, the efforts of the city and the county with recycling and getting information out and encouraging schools has been fantastic. And I found out today that we are due for another delivery of the side-by-side containers that are outside at most of our schools in the city, like the one we have out here in the patio as an example. So we'll be receiving more of those and distributing those to schools, and that's always a help with recycling when you have 2 containers side by side.
I think I read recently where Santa Barbara Junior High is saving $700 a month on their trash and recycle.
Right. Santa Barbara Junior High, Harding, and La Colina have kind of been the leaders, and Peabody, of course, Peabody Charter, have been the leaders in sustainability and recycling and grassroots efforts of those schools, and that's attributed to the principals and the staff. They're on board and leading the charge. It's not to say that the others aren't doing a good job. Those are the ones that are out front.
Well, part of our budget practice policy was to raise money by doing a better job at that, getting up to what, 66% or something?
That is correct, and you know, I wouldn't want to do it, but someone from the city and the county is going through our trash and looking at it, whether it's actually in the dumpster or looking at it when it's being dumped. They're keeping track and they're listening to how we're doing.
Okay.
Maybe that's so they could pay for their microwaves and refrigerators is by increasing their recycling.
But, yeah, I mean, and those phantom loads are things that you don't plan on when you design a school. You really can't budget, and it's kind of a hidden cost to the general fund because, you know, if you look on there, our electricity bills are $1.2 million a year. Just a 5% savings is significant.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a quick
yes,
question?
Mrs. Deacon.
What about natural light? I've been reading a little bit about some schools that are just asking folks to turn the lights off when there's enough sunlight coming in the room. Is that something that we've thought about at all?
Well, with the new building for the Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy, we actually looked at bringing natural light in that as part of the design, where for most of the time, unless it's a real cloudy day, they wouldn't really have to have their lights on inside unless they're doing something intricate on the machines where they would need the extra lighting for task lighting. But I would hope that schools on their own would not turn on the lights when they don't need to use them. And we have the little stickies all over the district, like on the top of that light switch right there of, when you leave the room, turn off your lights. And we encourage people to turn off the lights when they leave their room. And we encourage schools not to use turning on the lights like they did 10 years ago as a signal to the custodian that room needs cleaning.
City College, have you seen the solar panels that they've got in their parking lot at City College? Because they looked at solar panels on roofs and decided it was better, cheaper, and more efficient to put sunshades over the parking lot because you didn't have to go back to DSA, and it provides not only solar power, but also shaded
I think
areas.
right out here would be a great place to try that.
Well, we've got some big school parking
No,
lots.
seriously though, with DSA, the main issue is the structure of the roof and getting a structural engineer to let you know how much load you can add to that roof without having to reinforce it. So it's just it's the reinforcement of the roof to hold the extra weight. And so, again, this way you wouldn't have to worry about the extra weight because you're designing for the weight to begin with. But politically, I don't know how the public would view covered parking, even when it's generating energy. They may.
They provide light at night, and apparently they think theirs are going to be paid off in 8 to 11 years. And I know the cost on solar panels have dropped precipitously in the last year.
And that may be a consideration for a future bond issue. Again, you're spending capital funds to save general funds. It's a great concept in the long run. So if we ever do go out for the capital campaign, I sure hope that we look at including money for energy projects that would save the district money in the long run. And like I say, a lot of these have good paybacks, but it's just getting that capital up front to be able to afford the project.
Okay, thank you. I think F8 we can postpone until next week. I think you have, for policies, I think all 5 members, well, there'll be 4 members next week instead of 3.
Well, I know Ms. Parker will be really sad that
Yeah,
that we didn't get to
and I
the
think that
4,000
agenda is pretty
series.
short for next week, so
That's good.
let's move on. Yeah. So we'll postpone F8. Coming events, item H. I think you gave us a list earlier. Is there anything further for coming events? I, board comments and correspondence. I'll make one comment since I won't be here next week. When you go through the single plans, my comment is I've read the single plans. I think they are very, very good. The last 2 years, I've sort of looked for themes as I've read them. And 2 years ago, it was very heavy technology, I thought the theme was, and a little bit last year. Technology is not a major theme this year. But I saw time and time again, and maybe I didn't see it before, but the emphasis on solving the achievement gap goes to the relationship with parents and students. And I saw that in single plan after single plan after single plan. We've got to get the parents involved with their children, and that starts the education. And so if I was here, I would be talking a little bit with the principals as to what are their plans for getting more parent involvement. It's interesting that the teachers or the principals think, in the schools, think that's major, but it's not one of our focus goals. And we want to solve the achievement gap, but they're all telling us that you got to deal with the parents and their children in order to, be a part of solving it. So I'd be interested if there was some way we could measure that between this year and next year to see if, in fact, we can improve that. So I'd be talking about that. So if anybody wants to pick up on that next week, I would appreciate it. Future agenda items.
Well, we do have a meeting on November 3rd. which is coming up. We also have our regular meeting on November, let's see, 10th.
10th.
And at that meeting, we will be discussing the charter renewal for Cesar Chavez. We have a joint city council school board meeting on November 19. That's with Goleta. That's at Dos Pueblos in the library, and that's at 4 o'clock. We will start with a campus tour at 3:15 for any who are interested. We want particularly city council members to be able to see the auditorium, the pool, the existing engineering academy. And so those are the primary
Good.
locations. That's it.
Any other requests from the board members? We will adjourn this meeting.